Good evening, welcome to Poker Night Live, your full contact, black belt, no limit poker excellence tuition programme with myself, Dr. Tom, and Mr. Caspar Berry in the hot seats tonight. We'd love it if you get in touch with us. There are two ways that you can contact the studio. You can text us on this number, 62211, 62211, or you can email the studio from your personal computer, poker@pokernightlive.co.uk. While you're using your difference engine, why not check out our website, pokernightlive.co.uk, where you can find out more about the show, the wonderful game of poker, and indeed a very lively forum with some regular posters there. Mr. Berry, would you like to take us around the table?
Yes, let's go around the tables. Got a $2 tournament, $2 sit and go there. Lost a couple of players. Probably come back to that in a minute, see how they're getting on. Low stakes, so we may see some mistakes, but that's fine. $10 tournament there. Just lost one player. Hoofy in seat number 3, regular fixture. A $20 sit and go. And 3 kings there for Mordelm. And finally, our multi-table tournament. That'll be chuntering on throughout the evening. And we'll come to it, probably the final table, if not before. Quite possibly before tonight.
There you go, we've got 4 hours of chuntering to do here. As you can see, the games are live. You can see their hole cards. The stakes are real. The players are from all around the world. And you get the expert commentary of myself and Caspar Berry right through till 2 o'clock in the morning. But with no further ado, let's get ourselves down to one of those tournaments. Now, we will have some cash games later on in the evening when some of you sit down on them. We're looking for cash game players. In the meantime, though, we've got this $20 sit and go. And the jacks, so we had an email a couple of nights ago, Caspar, about jacks. Some poor guy saying he just couldn't turn them into winners. And Mark suggested he just temporarily regarded them the same as a pair of deuces, since it's possible to turn deuces into winners, provided you play them for the implied odds. Possibly a bit extreme, but it shows that there is a minimum expectation that you can get from them, provided you're prepared to play them with a specific aim in mind. I think a lot of people are overwhelmed by the need to play them as if they were a big pair, when they are a fairly suspect big pair.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bit extreme at all, Tom, to be honest with you. I think it's very, very good advice. I think it connects completely with what we were talking about last time we were on air together about those big pairs and the concept of bone dogging, which I'm sure will crop up later throughout tonight. But first of all, let's just have a look at what's going on screen at the moment.
Big matchup, huh? Ace Queen looking pretty sickly, but then 10 Jack with pretty much all his straightening outs are gone. I think you've got to like the 9s here for the implied odds. But unsurprisingly, overcards hit.
Yeah, I mean, overcards have hit, but a lot of the overcards were gone, Tom, weren't they? So it was of course, it's all probabilities, but there was a less probability that overcards would have hit in that hand than usual, given the amount of overcards that were out.
That's right, and of course he was also enjoying all the money that went into the pot from those, so he's certainly getting pot odds there, Frantic, I think, with those match up. But here we go, we've got a draw here, no good. And there's a side pot to be had, but no one wants to bet into it.
9's gone a sorry third.
There they are again, the jacks. More down with just the lone overcard there, the ace, but it is dangerous. Although we can see that Bison has an ace, and so Mordown's got one of his aces out. Mordown doesn't know that, so he must put all those aces down as live as far as he knows, which makes him about 30% in this matchup against Treader.
I wonder, Tom, how far one can take that that advice, actually. People, we get people going, oh, my aces are crap, my kings are crap, my jacks are crap. But what about going into all these hands, just seeing them as a pair? Now, not raising with them before the flop has problems inherent within it.
So we're talking about playing jacks and big pairs and
jacks, pairs. Queens, kings, and aces.
Yeah.
If you feel that those hands are being beaten, do 2 things. First of all, change your expectations. by seeing them just as a little pair and stop seeing them as the thing you're being rewarded for sitting there not playing for a long period of time. And secondly, just turning them into drawing hands for a little while. I'm not saying you should play them like that forever, because if you do, you are definitely passing up potential profits. But if you've got a problem where you play them aggressively before the flop and then you can't let go of them, I wonder if that's a good antidote. Or whether it should stop at jacks. Yeah,
it's a fairly radical one, and certainly with aces, because of the very serious problem that when you get a player against you with aces, normally you're hoping he's got he's got ace king or something like that. But anyway, one of your aces is quite likely to be out, or possibly two. So you get no mileage from those. I mean, I wonder if aces.
Say that again, Tom. I didn't understand that.
Oh, well, if you're playing a pair of fours and you're getting cheap and you're up against a bunch of legitimate hands.
Yes.
If they're legitimate hands, your fours are probably fully live, not in people's hands. But if you're playing aces against three other people, which is what you're trying to do, if you're treating them as implied odds cards, there's a good chance your aces are dead.
Right.
So you could actually be landing in negative expectation if you played aces like that, and indeed possibly queens and kings as well for that reason. I understand the man with the jacks and his problem, but I don't think I've had the same problems with aces or kings as with jacks. Queens is a funny one, isn't it? When I'm in a very big game where the blinds are very small relative to my stack, certainly in a tourney where I'm worried about getting knocked out, I tend to mentally feel that queens are a bit like jacks in that regard. They're just not quite strong enough.
And there is a pair of twos, and he's raised with them, and he's taken the blinds.
Implied odds schmods, he says. I'll take the blinds right now. Bryson with his 10 jack again, limping in, six-handed now. Case for raising that, I would say. And well, what does he make of that? Yeah, that's a nice raise, because it could well push Mordam off a pair, not just a stone cold bluff. Nicely done. There they are again, the jacks.
Jacktastic.
We'll see here in this section. I'm inclined here, Caspar. Call me a maniac. Oh no, with 370, I'm not inclined to do anything apart from raise up the pot. But in other situations, I might be prepared to play them a bit speculatively by putting in a raise big enough to get a caller and hoping that they'll catch an undercard. It's dangerous because, of course, there's a good chance they've got an overcard.
Do it just like this, in fact, as he's done? Big enough to get a caller?
Indeed, yeah. I mean, I think with so few chips, that's not wise.
And what's the difference? Tom, why does that make a difference?
Well, as you full know, Caspar, because deception has much less value when you've got fewer chips to benefit from it. You play a hand deceptively in order to encourage the pot to grow on the back of that misrepresentation. Interesting. So Jack 10 again for Bison. This is obviously his hand. That's his thing. 100 in the pot. He's got a relatively large number of chips. And he's probably thinking, well, look, let's have a look at Mordam's action before the flop. If he's got a better jack than me, Jack King, Jack Ace, maybe Jack Queen, those are all hands he'd be likely to raise. So he's based the strength of his hand now by knowing what his opponent did before the flop. And that's one of the first steps that you take as a poker player in coming to read your opponent's hand, is to look at their action before the flop. Of course, it's not bomb-proof, but it's a good start. Can't see that.
And when you say that, Tom, when you talk about looking at their action before the flop, what do we take from that? When we look at their action before the flop, why do we do that?
That's a good question, Caspar. And the simple answer is that most players know which cards they like to raise with, which cards they like to play with, and which cards they like to fold. And many players' standards in those respects conform to, broadly speaking, what makes sound card-based sense. in as much as they're more likely to be stealing if it's being folded round to them and they're in late position. And say if there's 3 limpers and then someone else limps in, now that's a great play if you've got a pair of 3s for those implied odds. It's a pretty lousy play if you've got a pair of jacks. So it takes a fairly spectacular sort of player to buck what makes good poker sense, card sense, for the purposes of deception there. And it's variable. Of course, if it's folded round to the guy in the cutoff and he puts in 3 times a big blind, that could easily be a nick, but it's perfectly consistent also with a big hand.
Yeah.
So the more poker you play, the more you find which are reliable indicators of your holding, of your opponent's holding, and which imply or indicate some hands, possibly quite different kinds of hands, big hands versus small hands. But you keep yourself open with regard to what they have. But pre-flop, I guess, I've got a feeling there's probably a deeper answer down there somewhere, Caspar, that's something to do with the fact that pre-flop hands have a very clear ranking, whereas on a flop, you can be in a situation where a hand is a made hand, and it's a good hand, and another hand is rubbish, but because it's got the draw, it's suddenly big. And so hand values become a bit more weird. So there's the short answer, the medium answer, and the as yet unknown answer for you. 430, 120 in the middle, suited ace, Caspar? All your chips?
No.
No? How are you going to play it?
I'm probably just going to release it, Tom, to be honest. I mean, I do think that excuse me, folding or raising is generally correct from the small blind. I don't like to just call and make it up, because if you call and make it up, particularly when you're a small stack like Frantic against a big stack like Moordown, if he raises you, what are you going to do? Just wasted another 40 valuable chips.
I agree.
And I don't think my tiny little suited ace is going to be good enough in that situation. Not least because if you do hand matchups with ace 2, it plays out awfully. Actually, I mean, you're a tiny favourite against any sort of second and third cards with first and fourth. All right, the suited nature adds something to it slightly, and of course, if he calls, we're almost certainly had it because he's got a bigger ace.
I can let it go. I'm going to play it, and the reason is that I think there's a reasonable chance I'm going to get called by, as you say, a hand that's not much worse, but at least slightly worse. And because of the money in the middle, the 120, I'm looking at a higher ace about 11% of the time. I'm looking at a pocket pair about 6% of the time. So since those are mutually exclusive, I'm looking at a better hand about 17% of the time, which isn't great, but I won't be surprised to see him call. But with 120 in the middle and I've got 370, I'm going to gamble there. I'm going to gamble.
Okay.
Well, a big shan with a Jack King. It's a very pretty hand. And he's got the result he needed, which was a fold. And 40-80 blinds, not terrible for many of these players, but Frantic and Treader both know that they're going to have to do some serious work to get through to the money here. No gentle gliding into the money. In fact, it's very rare that anyone gently glides into the money in a tournament. Pocket eights under the gun. Six-handed, well, that's a big hand. And let's see if this goes to an all-in. Treader, surely. He's going to raise. Yes, he is. Wary of a trap, but knowing that really only ace-king, aces, kings and queens are a serious problem. And that's a fine result for Treader, because he was slightly behind.
So, that raises an interesting question for me, Tom, which is, when you're in that situation of the tournament, as Frantic is, are you better off calling in that situation, or are you better off raising with nothing?
With the eights,
See, I would have called with the 8s there.
Uh-huh.
I know I'm only giving myself one way to win, but I don't know. I feel that for me is a better situation. Am I completely way off here, Tom?
Well, it's all about the numbers. It's all about the pot odds you're getting. How much money is already in the pot there, Caspar? I didn't see it. I think
He was at a raise into him with ace queen,
Uh-huh.
and he was in the big blind, I think, with a pair of 8s.
That's right. And how much money was in the middle? About 160, was it?
Yeah. Well, no. At the point of the raise, Tread had gone all in, hadn't he?
Sorry, but how much was there before?
4820.
Yeah.
Of which 80 is his. From the big blind.
I think I'm going to fold there, actually,
Really?
Caspar. I mean, I'm not expecting to see A7. I'm fairly reliably expecting to see overcards.
Yeah.
You know, on a bad day, a pocket pair, obviously.
Yeah.
On a very good day, a smaller pocket pair, but
Yeah.
not very often. I think I'm going to fold because I've got a little bit of folding equity left with the chips I've got if I can make a play.
Okay. So you don't want to be a 55% favourite in that case?
No, not with the possibility of an overpair. If he showed me his cards, I would probably call, but not definitely. I would probably call.
You're being cagey.
I think I would call, but I guess the point I'm saying is that in poker, even if you know you're ahead, if you're not much ahead, and you think you can outplay your opponents, it's perfectly reasonable to pass up that opportunity.
Okay. Yep, fine. Excellent. Let's go back to the game.
Well, let's have a look at
there's
email
emails.
first.
Okay,
Yeah, we've
cool.
got Gareth.
Yep.
Dr. Tom and Caspar, good to see the dream team back together tonight. Thank you very much, Gareth. I hope the show will be as entertaining and as informative as usual. Oh dear, so early and we've got a big responsibility on our shoulders.
I know, and I'm not feeling very well, so...
Well, if you're stuck with me, Gareth, forget it. You may as well turn over to the channels, neighbouring channels. Just don't let your wife know. Good to see the dream team back again tonight. I'm a relatively new no-limit hold'em player and would like some advice about charging opponents for cards. Good attitude, I like it. Recently, when I'm fairly certain I'm ahead on the flop or the turn, I've been trying to get a bit cute and extract some value by checking in the hope of inducing a bluff or to avoid scaring my opponent off. However, this continually seems to lead my opponents to outdraw me for free and cost me money. Is this a short-term aberration or am I making a fundamental mistake? All advice welcome and keep up the good work. Thank you, Gareth. What are your thoughts, Caspar? Or shall I express mine?
On the hoof. Do you want to express yours first? Allow me to gather my thoughts.
Okay, Gareth, the good news here is that if you bet there, then you are making money, provided you're ahead. I mean, that's straightforward. You are making money if you bet, if you charge him a price to draw, because there's money in the pot to be had.
Well, it's got to be enough of a price to draw.
Well,
no, you're right, even it is, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's money in the middle there, so if you charge him to draw,
Yeah.
he will have to pay when he's not got a hand yet.
Yeah.
And of course, if he folds, you've made money.
And if he's going to make his hand less than 50% of the time, then you're making money on that bet, because every pound that you put in, you're going to get 51 pence back.
Exactly, as Caspar says there. If he's on a flush draw and you put a pound in, then you only get 2/3 of that back on average, and he's only getting 1/3 of it back. He might be right to call because there's lots of money in the middle, but he is losing money calling any bets you make. So the worst that can happen is you say, well, I'm fellow slow playing lark, I'm going to charge people to draw to their big hands. So that's a strategy you can always fall back on. Personally, also just to bolster up that, I'm often of the opinion that it's good to bet when you've got a big hand because my opponent quite often calls me anyway. And so even though I might have trapped him for a pot by slow playing him, I might well win a bigger pot by not slow playing him. You know, it's all up in the air. Other players, James for example, and certainly Mark, and certainly Barry is a huge slow player. He loves to slow play hands, and it may be that when it all comes out in the wash, he makes more money than me when he builds a pot. But of course, then I get outdrawn less often. So I would, if I were you, Gareth, just come back a bit from the slow playing. It needs to be a big hand, say a set with no flush draw, or a set with no flush draw or straight draw. That's the sort of hand I'm interested in slow playing. And it wouldn't be a terrible idea just to slow play a bit less.
Okay. Shall I have a little bash?
Okay.
All right. I think that there is such a thing, I think, as basic optimum play.
Well, let's hope so.
Yeah,
we put our faith in that.
I think you've alluded to it when you talk about when you bet when you're ahead.
Ignoring psychology, you mean?
Ignoring psychology. That is basic optimum play. And in a game where people are playing incorrectly, in other words, when they'll call when they're not ahead, then you are making a profit. Okay?
It's true.
Yeah, that's basic optimum play. We had an email and various people, I think Michelle's dad, actually, Michelle Orp, the night nurse, her father, is one of the people who said, actually, poker's a flawed game because once everyone can play like that, then surely no one's making any money. Now, if you are playing someone who is also playing basic optimum play, if it was a bot and the two bots were programmed in exactly the same way, you would have to reprogram your bot to respond to that. And therefore, you'd have to introduce a play which was not particularly profit maximizing in that particular instance, but which had a longer term profit maximizing, not longer term, I mean a profit maximizing yield throughout the course of the hand. Yeah? And therefore the check or the slow play in that situation might maximize the profits against someone against whom you couldn't maximize the profits through simple profit optimizing play. I hope that's all making sense. Is it making sense, Tom?
It makes sense to me, yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's when you would do that play. You wouldn't do that play against someone who was going to call your bet in the first place because it's more risky. Now, here's the big question. Here's the big question. Let's say you're sitting there against someone who's not as good a player as you, all right? They will incorrectly call your profit optimizing bet. They will incorrectly call when you are ahead in the hand, and they'll do it regularly and often enough to yield a profit. The question is, are these strategies, and the two strategies hold exactly the same boat, is slow playing when you've got the better hand and or misrepresenting, bluffing when you have the worse hand, are they going to are they going to add to what we consider to be profit optimizing play? Does that make sense as well?
Yes, it does.
Yes, so the question is, are they even better than the traditional mathematical optimizing play, even against a player against whom that would make a profit? I think what it does is it introduces another level of uncertainty. And the level of uncertainty is we don't now know what his hand is, we don't now know how he's going to behave on this street, and we don't now know how he's going to behave on the next street either, especially given that we don't know what his hand is going to be on the next street, given the next card, which is also uncertain. So all these uncertainties have come in. So you've put yourself in a riskier situation, which is going to increase your variance, which is why you say, is this a short-term aberration? It's going to take a little bit of a longer period of time in order to establish whether that play is profitable or not. What it does is it puts you in a situation where your decisions, your gut level reading of the game becomes a lot more important than your more simplistic ability to put money in when you're ahead at this time, which, let's face it, is not easy in itself, is it?
No.
So I think that, let's just boil this down. When should you be doing moves like that? Number one, when you think you're up against a player who is as good as you, or number two, when you think you are vastly better than the other players around the table, and probably vastly better than players around the table who are themselves pretty good. If you're not in those situations, if players will call you incorrectly, and or you are not vastly better than those other players, and you don't have a confidence in your ability to read the hand as a whole, I don't think there's any need to get tricky in poker. It increases the uncertainty too much without maximising the profits enough as a result.
I hope that helps, Gareth.
Did all that make sense?
It made sense to me, yes.
Okay.
Just very quickly. I mean,
it's quite complicated.
Remember that when he's made his draw, you can go back and calculate how likely he was to make it. That's something you can do if it's a flush draw, a straight draw, or gut shot. What you can't know is how much he would have paid you for had you bet at him to draw to it, whether he would have folded or not. But you can make some guesses, and you could sit down and actually say to yourself, well, if I bet this amount, how much would it cost me to push him out? You know, and other times when he doesn't catch his draw, and he would call this to draw, well, how much will I make? And that might make you feel better and get over this short-term aberration side of things. We're going to get ourselves back down to the poker now, but thanks for that, Gareth. Quick reminder of those text and email numbers: 62211, 62211 to text the show, or you can email us at poker@pokernightlive.co.uk. Tonight is Pro Night, but we're more than happy to field questions from beginners if they don't understand what we're talking about. And Jack Alley is a an exit. Oh, there is. Post-mortem. Gore, blimey.
Well and truly lost, I think.
Top boat versus King High. Or Queens with a king.
You just threw a bit of jargon there, didn't you, Tom?
Top boat.
Top boat, you said.
I'm still sore about not getting on the cruise, Caspar.
Why is a full house called a boat?
I don't know. Because a house isn't a boat, is it?
Is it with a houseboat?
Well, it's not called a houseboat.
Full house? No. Oh, isn't it something to do with Mississippi, actually?
Everything's always to do with Mississippi.
Yes, it is. Well, that's why you get the river card and boats. It's all the same.
No.
It's all the same thing, isn't it? Poker's origins on the
but you could say,
boats of Mississippi.
did they only ever deal full houses on the river boats?
You could say that, Tom, if you wanted to. I couldn't possibly comment.
Yes. Today I know in Omaha you need to use two. You need to use two and only two from your hand, as we well know. But I was playing a game of Omaha this afternoon, and I had jacks and sevens double suited.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, I'll have a punt with this. I was on the button. I limped in. Not a great hand, of course. And I flop quad jacks. I'm starting to sound like Neil Channing. I flop quad jacks.
Who's he?
He's a guy who talks like this.
In what context? Is he a commentator?
No, only on live.
Oh.
Oh, he's a poker player.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a bookie. And a nice chap. Anyway, I flop quads.
Is he just a mate of yours? Or should the viewers know who he is?
No, they probably don't. I'm rambling horribly. But some will. In fact, Neil might be listening. Hi, Neil.
Mate, you're making us seem a bit like Wayne's World. You know, we are professionals talking to a mass worldwide audience.
Yeah, all right, okay, I feel bad now. Can I tell my story if I don't drop in friends' names?
Yeah.
Okay, so I made quads, and I thought, well, I better check here, because it's impossible, even though there were 4 other players in the pot, for anyone to have anything, because I've got all they need.
Yeah.
And then the turn card was a 7. So now I had quads and a set on the side. So this is like some kind of Uber house.
Yes.
Yeah, it's 4 of a kind and 3 on the side.
How are you going to get it to pay?
Well, I put in the minimum, and about 4 people called.
Okay, oh, that's good.
Which was nice.
Yeah, that was nice.
But there should be a name for it, but I don't know what it is. It's like Uber house. Luxury pad, maybe.
Like having 3 pairs.
Yeah, but that's always just annoying.
But it's just rubbish, isn't it?
Yeah, because you have to fold them. Whereas the Uber house, I was not folding. But the funny thing is, I bet again on the river with 3 people still in, with nary a concern that there might be a straight flush there.
Mm.
And I had a look, actually, when I'd been called with a worse hand, but I forgot all about the royal flush, or the straight flush. Mustn't do that, Omar. Even the 4-card variety. Did you play the game?
Omaha?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Any yearning deep down?
No, actually. I don't know why.
Game of the future?
Yeah, I imagine that if you're good at Omaha, it's insanely profitable because you're going to have a lot of Hold'em players, or you already have a lot of Hold'em players moving across to Omaha and judging their hand rankings by their Hold'em hand rankings.
And playing 1 card from the hand instead of 2.
Yeah, I've got to be honest with you. My limited experience of Omaha has been pretty unenjoyable and quite bad, actually.
Why was it unenjoyable, if not just because it was bad?
Don't know. I'll have a think about that and watch Big Shan playing his pocket rockets.
Okay.
3 times the big blind raise, and he'll get no customers. But he'll make 480 chips. I think it was because Nick was laughing at me throughout a lot of my time playing Omaha. Nick's extraordinarily good at Omaha high-low. Won his first 160-person tournament at Omaha high-low in the Orleans Casino in Las Vegas.
Ah, but he got a prep talk from Annie Duke, I believe.
He did get a pep talk from Annie Duke, which is nice, but still. And just harvest money when he plays it online, which would beg the question: why doesn't he play it more often? And I think it's because it's not that interesting a game.
High-low.
Yeah, I mean, it's very automaton.
It is, Cas.
He just sits there, you know, making very few decisions. The hands just play themselves. You have the nuts, or you draw to the nuts, or you fold it.
No limit, or rather pot limit high-low Omaha seems a bit like fixed limit Texas in some ways.
Are you being rude again about fixed limit Texas again?
I'm sorry, I forgot to... We had a few questions about limit the other night, Cass, and we were saying, well, we don't know, or care. Talk to Caspar Berry.
Okay.
It's terrible. We should all be sent on us non-limit players should be sent on a course, I think, to learn it.
Well, I should be sent on an Omaha course, I suppose, as well.
Okay.
Perhaps you can give me a course in it.
Okay. 2 and always 2. And don't play small pairs.
I'm hoping we go a bit further than that, do we?
Well, maybe
by day 3.
That'll save you a few hundred. Look, we're still 5-handed here. It's been ages. Jack Alley is a distant memory. 5-handed blinds now 163.20. Look at these rocks. And Frantic has dug himself out of it. I bet he's glad he folded that ace. Did he fold it? Can't remember what he did with the ace.
He called and...
Called and then folded, yeah.
See, I just think small blind, so awful.
Yeah, that was
I'm going to play the small blind in a totally 100% basic ABC way. Put my money in when I absolutely know I'm best.
Mm-hmm.
Why do anything else from the small blind?
Mm-hmm. Not a place to be creative from, is it?
The blinds are... they're a forced bet. Everyone has to pay them. They go around the table. Why try and do anything fancy from them just because you happen to have a little bit of money in the pot?
Mm-hmm.
Is my view.
Well, I bet this because there's just a tiny chance Bison would fold his big blind. And if he doesn't, I'm almost certainly marginally ahead. I'm surprised Frantic folded that.
Well, the blinds are so big now, aren't they? Yeah, exactly. I agree with you, Tom.
I mean, Bison's got to put in 1,000 to call Frantic spare, or best part of. I think there's a few hands he'd have folded. Full house. A boat. I've asked you.
To coin a phrase. I mean, if Frantic's not going to bet there, he's going to be calling quite soon.
Mm. Yeah, very soon. In fact, next hand, probably.
And I think we'd rather be betting with our pair of 5s than calling with a random hand, wouldn't we?
Yeah, and in fact, taking it down, I think the possibility that Bison will fold this would probably lead me to bet there with 3s. I think. Oh, I feel a bit queasy saying that. I do feel distinctly queasy saying that, but...
Do you feel like a whore?
I do. I feel like a real cut-off whore. But...
We can get one for you if you want.
No, I'm all right.
Oh, you didn't know that, sorry.
No, really, Caspar, fine. But the logic seems to carry on there. That if there's a chance the big blind will fold, and you're probably ahead, then why can't you bet that hand?
We're being very cruel to Frantic, who's just survived another round of the blinds, so shows what we know, but...
No, it wasn't a donkey play.
No, you understand, it's just our job to put our point of view forward. Oh, did you see the show last night?
No, what happened?
Now, I'm not rubbing this in at all, because we're all gentlemen, and it was incredibly kind of him. I got a lovely apology from Duff Miver.
Duff?
Yeah, do you remember he said, Caspar, for God's sakes, can you not admit you're wrong just once? And I was all upset because I agreed with his email. Do you remember at the end of last show
I do vaguely remember, but because it wasn't barbed at me, I obviously didn't sink in quite so deep.
No, I understand it didn't permeate your particular universe, but it's very nice. He said he could be a bit of an arse sometimes, and it was just my general thing throughout the show rather than my comment on his email.
Oh well.
Just showed the lovely sense of community we have.
Yes.
And I commented again on the wisdom of his email, which I thought was brilliant.
You see, what happens is every time we look at Frantic's play, we criticise it, and then we look at each other and talk about stuff, and we look back and he's got loads of chips.
Good, that's good for him. Good for him.
He's hiding his strategy from
Would
us.
you be re-raising now, Tom?
Ace Jack, let's see, it's been...
Got a man all in?
Yeah, I'm all in. I'm all in.
Yep.
Trader can do anything then. Also, he's got Ace 5, that's why I'm re-raising.
No, Frantic, yeah. You and would you just double it, or would you push?
I don't think it makes much difference. I'll push, but I mean, I think if I put anything in there, it's understood that I'm going all in.
Yeah. Well, that's why. Yeah, but that's why I would push.
Maybe his cunning plan was, well, look, I know that I'm going all in. Any sensible player would know that I'm going all in. But some people might think, oh, he must have aces because he's putting the minimum raise. What do you think of my theory? Or is he just too lazy? He knows he's going all in, so he just pressed the minimum bet thing because it's easier to do that than to click the slider along.
Say it again, mate.
Well, basically, when the buttons come round to you, if you just press bet, it will put in the minimum raise. But if you want to go all in, you've got to type in the amount or slide the slider along.
Yes.
So it's a nanojoule more effort to do that.
Yes.
And poker players are prodigiously lazy. So if he knows that he will be understood to be going all in, if he just puts any bet in, then it's easier that way.
Wow.
Come on, spill the beans, Frantic. If that's
God, are we that lazy as a species, as a group, as a subset of humanity?
Yeah, well, poker players, there's lots of generations between the average poker player and the woolly mammoth hunters of old, and they've kind of gone down the pure brain line.
Are you saying people like Greg Raymer aren't fine specimens of men?
Well,
Greg Raymer, Jackarama. Think of another fat poker player just to round off this joke and take us back to the hand.
well, I don't want to be fattest.
Okay. Going to quote the Jimmy Carr line there, but I won't.
I was going to quote it, but I couldn't remember the name of the comedian, but it's Jimmy Carr, so go and tell the joke.
Bison leaves us with a pair of sixes.
This was the joke that Bernard Manning nicked, wasn't it? And had to issue a public apology for.
If that was someone, then I think it was Jim Davison. I certainly know that Jimmy Carr was going to take action against Jim Davison.
It was Jim Davison, you're right, yeah. For some reason it seemed like a joke that Bernard Manning would tell.
Yeah. Treader on the button with King 8. The age-old question, Tom. You're three-handed. Do you let other people battle it out, or do you apply pressure yourself?
Is this a tournament equity question in disguise? I think it is. Well, not even heavily disguised.
In which case I may sidestep the landmine.
Probably. Well, you know how I feel about tournament equity. I might well stick it in.
How do you feel about tournament equity?
I feel pretty good about it.
Cool, excellent.
I've squared it with my conscience. It's just everyone else thinks I'm weird.
I don't think you're weird. I think you're illuminating.
You're my contact to the rest of the world, Caspar.
I am. I'm literally, you give me messages and I make them palatable for people to digest. Just little crumpled pieces of paper that I
You're
have
my
to
publicist.
communicate to the world.
Ace, deuce. Well, I think that's got to be all in, sir. 1280. What's with the reverse psychology dwell? What are you doing, sir? You must have a slow connection. Yep, there it is. And Treader can fold, because Frantic has still got chips. That will be a call, or certainly should be, for such prodigious pot odds. What are they? We're looking at 7-1.
Yeah, and he hits.
Ooh, look at that, straight on the board. Don't see that very often. Oh no, there's a jack! Oh my god! I thought it was going to be a split pot, but it wasn't.
Frantic takes the jack. Back to the old date of old there, missing the straight.
Yeah, it takes me back.
Yeah.
But that was a tricky one. That was
It
quite
was
a kinky
tricky.
one.
No, don't get
Because I
me
saw
wrong.
one straight, but there was two.
Absolutely.
Still. Well, 4-3, that's typical, isn't it? You're faced with what ought to be an automatic decision with the pot odds, and then you're given the only two cards you can think of that mean that you do have a decision. Treader folds it. And he's caught the queen.
Queen 3, Queen 2.
Splitty.
It certainly is. Queens and 4s with a king kicker. 5-4 versus 2-4.
Could be splitty again. Looking that way.
Yep.
Yep. Or is there a straight there? No, there's a straight there. That's all a bit weird, isn't it? Tricky straight. So we're going to go straight to a cash game.
Fantastic.
Well done, Frantic. Well done, Frantic. I'm glad Frantic won it.
Yes, no, absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Well played.
We scrutinised him, but he came through with flying colours.
Yeah, it was fine as long as we weren't scrutinising him, I think. Oh, look, two players with sixes.
Super Gran. Do you remember that? It was filmed in Newcastle. It was rubbish.
She was Scottish, wasn't she? Scottish lady.
Yeah.
Was it?
It was so bad.
Do you think that's the actress who did the voiceover?
What?
There.
No, I don't. No.
Yeah.
That's just a quick probability calculation I did in my head.
That's the sort of
I
thing
can't say anything for
you've got
certain.
to be able to do as a poker player, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Yep.
Look, top two versus bottom set. What are the odds, eh?
You're just saying that because you're quoted as saying that in the forums and people thought it was funny.
Oh yes, no, you're right.
You're thinking I've happened on something
No, I'm
funny
genuinely
here.
interested in the odds. Now that was 7-8, getting cracked by aces and kings.
Now, something interesting happened today, Tom,
What
with special relevance for statistics and probabilities and percentages.
All right, what
happened?
I don't know. Let's see. England won an international football match?
No, very close, very close.
Um,
Rugby, give you a clue, rugby. 5 nations, 6 nations. 7
Someone
nations.
converted a try.
No. You're not aware of the result today at all?
No.
Scotland
Yeah.
beat France
Okay.
at Murrayfield. Now, I know nothing about rugby, all right? So you need to understand that. I know absolutely nothing. And more than that, I don't care at all. Okay, so let's be absolutely clear.
Does that help you be impartial? Is that the logic here?
I'm impartial and I don't care, right? But what I do know, because I'm an avid fan of 5 Live, is that everyone who knew anything about rugby said that France weren't just in with a good shout, France were going to win that game. They were going to win that game. That's the equivalent of, I don't know, Northern Ireland beating England at football, and I think and then some, actually, is my understanding of rugby. What's interesting about this from my point of view is that we still go through this life speaking of certainties. We, in that debate on 5 Live, the host goes to a panel of rugby players. So who's going to win this game? Not what's the probability of someone winning this game. Who's going to win this game? And every single one of them went France without a doubt. Yes, definitely France. France. 6 of them all said France, right? And said Italy would take the wooden spoon for the 6 nations. What beguiles me is that in 2006, the general population have a fundamental lack of understanding of what probability is and how it impacts our lives every single day and how everything actually only has a probability. The chance of France beating Scotland was probably a very, very high probability, but what's demonstrated by that, what's demonstrated by Greece winning the European Championships, what's demonstrated by Northern Ireland beating England, what's demonstrated every day of our lives is that all these things are only a high probability. They're not certainties.
Well, Caspar, I mean, you won't be surprised to learn that I agree with you. However, when it comes to showbiz, basically there are 3 positions you can take. It's A's going to win, B's going to win, I don't know, and the middle one looks a bit wussy.
It does, absolutely. But what's interesting is I think weather forecasts have been saying 70% chance of rain now for several years, and people listen to that and go, "What does that mean? What does that tell me? Shall I just go to the beach for 70% of the day?"
Do you know what, Caspar? This is a non-trivial example because poker is the same, and it's always worried me because, as you say, with rain, it's of no use. 70% is no use. It's going to rain or it's not. And with poker, you're going to get outdrawn or you're not.
Yes.
So,
but we have the luxury in poker, don't we?
What luxury do we have?
Well, the luxury is if you go on your holidays to Cornwall.
You only go once.
And they say 70% chance of rain today. You've got to make a decision either way. In poker, we can play those percentages. We can put our arm around those percentages and say, thank you, hug those percentages, thank you for being my friend, thank you for allowing me to understand you when my ditzy opponent doesn't, and I will work with you to take him down in the long run, and actually not worry about the fact that 20% of the time, 10% of the time, 2% of the time he'll outdraw me. I guess one of the points that I'm making is, when players make outrageous plays and they say things like, I knew he didn't have an ace, no. You couldn't possibly know he didn't have an ace. You may have put a very small probability of him having an ace, but we've got to adjust our language, I think, to take account of the fact that all these things are probabilities.
But it's less macho, Caspar. He says it, not as a cool, dispassionate, probabilistic fact. He says it to show that he is the man and his opponent is a chump.
That's right. So I don't think don't know is the middle ground, is what I'm saying. I think you can, as Mathman, who emailed me about 4 months ago on this very subject, would say, you can say with absolute certainty that there's a 75% chance that he has an ace. That's your certainty. That's not a don't know. That's a very different question. But I think if you want to be a great poker player, you've got to get used to using that kind of language, or at least thinking in that kind of way, even if you don't outwardly project it. Keep your macho image, just have a more sensitive feminine intuition.
Do you think probability is a bit wussy and feminine then?
That's your point, isn't it?
Well, Well, have a macho probabilistic image.
I'm comfortable with my probabilities.
Good. Oh, well, that's good.
I'm glad to be grey.
If you're comfortable, I'm comfortable. Look, it's 25-cent, 50-cent game, Caspar. This is lower than we normally see.
It is.
We've got Snap It, a regular player. Buffy Be Good, has seen also. Smooth Cut, bit of a Gary Glitter.
I don't know if he'll thank me for saying this, but it's my job.
Who?
Last 2 games, I've been watching Snap It. 30% pre-flop play ratio.
Good Lord.
30%.
And how is he playing? Is he doing a lot of limping, looking to outplay his opponents on the flop, or is he just tilting in like a mug?
Well, let's have a look at the statistics in just a minute, shall we?
Okay. 30%, yeah, 8-handed game. Well, now that statistic is only meaningful in relation to other players, because if other players are playing loose passive poker, then it's perfectly reasonable to push your own pre-flop calling up.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Listen to me sticking up for you, Ken.
I know. Well, I'm not criticising him.
No, you're not. You're right.
I'm just saying it's an observation about someone whose game has definitely changed.
Mm.
No, I think he's been playing, good poker, but it's just a big difference. I don't think we can use Snap It as euphemism for rock anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's called the Ducks, and that's the sort of call that was going to contribute to that 30% pre-flop.
Yeah, I mean, 6 months ago he would have folded them as soon as looked at them, wouldn't he?
He'd have put them in an envelope and sent them back to the company.
Back to Chem.
And there's a danger, you'll get raised. And I don't like a call here. Or at least I don't. Perhaps Gus Hansen does.
I think with Buffy's fold, I would be folding. If Buffy'd called, I would have called.
Yeah.
And why is that? Because I know then that I've got, first of all, bigger pot odds now, but also more players giving me greater implied odds later on in the hand. Fair comment?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, he had another player to act behind him. Gary probably wasn't going to race. What you probably find with these tables is they sort of, what's the word you use? Chunter along fairly typically for a while, and then we put the TV eye on them, and then 5-10 minutes or however long it is for our feed to be revealed on the TV screens of the players, they all start changing their game to adjust to what they've just seen happening. So you're going to get a very special Poker Night Live sort of game theory situation developing, where each player is adjusting a strategy to what he's seen that his opponents are now playing, but being aware that his opponents might well be changing as they do that in order to stay one step ahead of the game. So it's all a bit mixed up. Let's have a look at an email. Jim, heads up query, he says. All right, Jim. I've been playing in tournaments and doing reasonably well until getting down to the last 2. That is very well. Well done. I find when it's heads up, you don't have time to wait for a decent hand because you're consistently paying blinds, which are usually quite high by this time. And because of this, you're forced to play hands that are weak. What's the best way to play heads up? Thanks for your help.
He's sounding like that man again.
Which man?
The man who talks like this.
Who's he?
I don't know, your
Oh,
friend.
that was Neil Channing.
Yeah, how does he talk?
So I've got aces on the big blind.
Quite differently then, actually. Sounds
Yeah.
like him. Do you know what I would say if you're Jim? I would have a little practice. I would set a whole series of hands, about 3/4 of the total potential hands that you can have, and I would go all in with them every time. If the blinds are that big,
Yep.
in relation to his stack, just establish what hands he won't go all in with. So let's say 2-3, 2-4, 2-5, 2s up to... twos up to king, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So we won't go all in with queen 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? 3s up to king as well, 4s up to king, 5s, let's go all in with king 5, queen 5,
Caspar, I'm more than happy to.
yeah, queen 5. 6s, definitely 6, 7, 6, 8, 6, 9, 6, 10. Anyway, you get the picture.
Basically, in Texas Hold'em, when you're called, having gone all in, it's not going to be by a big hand. Normally you've got 2 live cards. Normally you have 2 live cards. Your opponent very rarely has got a higher pocket pair. And if you've got 2 live cards, you're at least 2-1. Or at least he's 2-1 against you, but you're in there for about a third, winning at about a third of the time. Now, the pot odds are terrific in that situation. If the blinds are big and there's a reasonable chance he'll fold, then still to be 1 in 3 to win the pot when it's called is going to be fine. So you just don't need much there. So embrace the luck. It's relaxing heads up and a sit and go, certainly, because there's not much skill left anymore. You're in the money and it's out of your hands. So don't fret about it.
Just come back to that point. Just write down the chart of all those possible. What is it? How many possible hands is it?
169.
169 hands, and just mark down the ones that you're prepared to go all in with, and make it about 3/4 of it, and heads up, push in with 3/4 of them, and see what happens. Start playing a couple of heads up battles like that, and don't wait till you get to the tables. Play heads up. Don't do it from the very off. Play solid poker for the first few stages. But as soon as your blinds get to 10% of your overall stack, start playing very aggressively, see how it plays out.
Text, no name. I notice that people on TV, and I assume you're talking about our players, but maybe not, never seem to raise with low pocket pairs, such as pocket 8s and below. I always raise up a bit with these hands. What's your view on this? My view, text, no name, is you should raise substantially or not at all. Because you're falling between 2 stools if you raise a bit. If you're in say, early position with a pair of 5s and you put in a substantial raise, then you're in a position to represent a hand on the flop if you've put in a meaningful raise. But if you just limp, then you're increasing your implied odds because you've got more of your chips behind the line when the flop comes down relative to what you've already committed, which means you've got higher implied odds than if you put in a raise and already contribute some before you've caught your set. So unless you're doing it for a very specific reason, I would say raise or call, and mostly call, because you'll be cross when you get pushed off it by a bigger raise. What do you think, Caspar?
Yeah, the only counter argument I'll put to it is,
okay,
let's say we do a pot building raise.
Yes.
So let's say we do just raise twice the big blind.
Okay.
Yeah, and we know we're going to get all those callers. We're still going to get the implied odds.
Yeah.
But now we've got a little bit of sort of momentum with that raise, and maybe we can steal it from on the flop as well.
Ooh.
Bad.
But you're going to lose what you get from the occasional steal, which I think is unlikely. You're going to lose in terms of some of the implied odds lost because they fold top pair because they've got aces when you've caught a set.
True.
So don't worry about it. You don't have to play them. Lots of other Hold'em hands you can play. We're going to take a break now. Don't go away. Lots more poker. See you in 7 minutes for a bit more Poker Night Live. Welcome back to Poker Night Live. Thanks for sticking around. We're going to have a look at a few emails before going down to a sit-and-go tournament. We've got one here from Jamie saying, funny anagram. Hi guys, just a quick one to tell you about an interesting anagram. If you type Doyle Brunson's super system into an anagram generator, you get rotundly bossy supremeness, which I think is very apt. Carry on the good work. Thank you.
We were having a lot of fun last night with anagrams. Nick Wellfall comes out as very rude in the anagram generator. It's very funny. We're not allowed to say it on air. I came out as what did I come out as? Raspberry crap is one for me. Michelle Orp always came out as some sort of small furry animal, no matter who did the anagram.
Try Dr. Tom, that's nice and short. Challenge you to find something rude there. In fact, try Mark Bannon's 7/8 offsuit, please, in an anagram generator.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear. Mark Bannon's 7/8 offsuit.
Rotundly bossy supremeness is brilliant, though. It is excellent.
Should we email him?
Sorry?
Should we email
Tell
Doyle?
Doyle. Yeah, definitely.
Keith says brown nosing, which is quite promising. I always enjoy listening to your interesting discussions on poker theory, and as you are the best possible combinations of presenters. Oh, there you go.
That's very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think henceforth you should be referred to as the nuts.
You see, that does have a second connotation, doesn't it?
It does, yes.
In fact, it has 3.
Do you think he's
actually
been very, very clever and laughing at us?
Yeah. I'll be honest with you, though. As I've said to Duff, you know, I'm very open to people emailing the show telling me that I'm talking gibberish and rubbish and correct me.
Crap, in fact.
We had a great email yesterday which told me I was completely wrong about aces, and I agreed with it. However, if you are going to take the time to email the show, that is a much nicer thing to say, isn't it? I think. If you've got a choice.
Let's have 5 of those to everyone saying
Spread
we
some
talk
joy.
rubbish. Thanks for that, Keith.
Thank you, mate. Very kind.
Should we read it out again?
Well, you did it the first time, so we're not that far off.
Let's have a look at P, who says, oh, this is the Uber house. Poker Night Live should name your Uber house Mayfair because that's where you find the Uber houses. Okay, thank you very much. I got a Mayfair Jack's Fair of Sevens this afternoon. Lovely. One more. Let's have a look at it. It's from Tim in Hull. Hi, Tom and Cass. I've been steadily working up the limits, sticking to 2,000 times the big blind rule. Or is it a tool? That's
a rule.
This will be P's bankroll. Jolly good. I'd like to know when you get to enjoy the money. What a mug. You don't get to enjoy the money. You build it all up and then you die.
That's not why you play poker.
Your bankroll is sacred, you lightweight. Who sends these emails in? Let's read Keith's out again. Have you thoughts on when to make a withdrawal and do some spending? I think this is... Tim's wife has hacked into his email account and sent us a fraudulent email. Tim would never say something wussy like that. No, you just keep moving up until you start losing, and then you move back down again.
The thing is, Tim, if you hadn't moved up, you would have had money to extract, wouldn't you?
Well, don't rub it in.
No. He's decided to move up the limits. That's fine.
Uh-huh.
But if you move up the limits, then what you're doing is it's a bit like as an analogy in terms of business. I've got a video production company and we make profits, and I can either take those profits out and enjoy them or reinvest them back into the company and grow the size of the company. When I reinvest them back into the company, I'm not enjoying them, and I take quite a low salary for the last 3.5 years for the pleasure of doing that, but I have a company that was worth X 100,000 and is now worth more 100,000 with any luck. That's my decision, and at the end of it, you have a bigger capital value. In fact, there's an interesting distinction between American companies and British companies. In British companies, they tend to pay dividend, whereas in American companies, the tradition is that they reinvest profits back into the company and increase the stock price for that very reason. So what he's doing is increasing his stock price. He's increasing the value of his capital asset. You can remove from that capital asset at any time. The key thing is to get a balance. So you're taking a little bit out, but you're increasing the value of your capital asset at the same time.
But he still doesn't get to enjoy much of it. Buy yourself an ice cream and consider yourself lucky, Tim. You're a poker player, crying out loud.
I hope my answer made it a bit more sense and emotionally satisfying.
62211, 62211, if you would like to text us a question about satisfying yourself with poker, or you can email us at poker@pokernightlive.co.uk. Great. Well, we're going to nip down now to another sit-and-go game. It's a $30 tournament. Let's go and see who's down there. I wonder who's in seat 3. Oh, maybe it was Hoofy. I'm trying to work out whether seat 5 is rude. I'm reading it out in my head, but normally it's only rude when I actually read it out for real. Doesn't look rude to me. Shall I bite the bullet and read it out?
Yeah, go on.
Are you one so 4 and co?
Is it R-Y-U? R-Y-U. What should we call him? Anko?
Ankos, yeah, why not? And there it is, Queens and Eights.
Queens and Eights. Queens and Eights.
Wow, it's a sit and go, Cass.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Would you like a starfish bath alarm? Never be a slave to a running bath again with a starfish bath alarm. It watches the water level so you can go off and do other things, and then it'll probably sound an alarm when it reaches the starfish which you've plugged onto the side of your bath.
Unfortunately, Cass, my life is so empty that I have nothing better to do than watch the bath filling up while I'm running it. However, I'm not sure my life would be fuller for having that.
I worry that that is because you don't have one of these, whereas it would actually create time in which you could Play poker, play online, have a quick sit and go while the bath runs.
It would have to be a turbo.
Safe from the knowledge that...
The bath isn't that big.
Could have very slow taps. Bane of my life, slow taps. I don't know about you. Slow taps or cold taps. Hate them. Hate them. Grew up in old houses that just, the pub's just clogged with copper sediment or something.
Oh.
Always slow taps. Half an hour to run a bath, usually. And also, parents who bought houses that were too big for them to afford to be able to heat. So cold houses, which is why I now keep my house at the constant 25 degrees.
So it's grim up north.
It was grim. Well, no, actually, the house was lovely, but they always bought a house that they couldn't afford to heat. What was the point of that?
To impress the neighbours.
And still, the thing that depresses me most in the whole world is walking into a cold flat or house. That and war. I hate war.
And given a choice?
Probably war, to be honest, because you shouldn't joke about things like that, should you?
Nope.
Anko has a button, and Addy has ace-queen suited. And he'll probably get a call from making jam. There's a little first position call with 8-10. Now, let's just be completely clear, folks. When I say that I like to play loose in the early stages of sit and go, first of all, this is not the early stages as I would define them. Blinds are now 80. All right, he's got 160 in his stack, so it's only 5%, but still not ideal. And he's in first position. So for me, not much merit in that, unless Cool has some sort of a plan. Now, Queen King.
Oh, yeah.
Calling, and he's called again.
Let's have a look at its implied odds. How many chips has Addy got? Well, half of what's in the pot.
Yeah, I think we can assume that is a loss-making bet, folks, and when you make a loss-making bet, you're basically donating money to the rest of the table. How about an Antworks, which is like a clear plastic container with a blue gel in, and you stick ants inside, and they create a little hive, which you can see through the transparent clear plastic gel. When I was little, we put 2 gerbils into a glass box.
Sorry, I thought Richard Gere was going to figure, but carry on.
Yeah, we did that last night, actually, bizarrely. Me and Michelle talked about gerbils.
Okay.
No. But we were slandering the hamster last night, and it wasn't the hamster, was it? It was a gerbil. In the modern myth that is the Richard Gere story, as Stan chooses the wrong time to bluff, and Jack Alley just smooth calls. Interesting smooth call. Do you think he's scared of the king, Tom?
I think he might be.
Would Stan bet if he had a king? For me, that's the biggest tell. We'll know now whether he checks or bets. If he checks, he is scared of the king. If he bets, he's not.
I think Jack Alley's saying, well, if you've got the... I'm going to call anyway, but if you've got the king...
I'll let you bluff into it.
If you haven't got the king, yeah, let you bluff you into me.
Okay.
Because it's so secure, ace is there, if he hasn't got the king.
That bet on the end, Tom, river principle wise?
Yeah, I think he's taken a view and said, well, now I'm certain you haven't got the king.
He's checked twice, yeah.
So I'm 100% ahead, and if there's only a 1% chance you'll call, I might as well chuck it in. But then, of course, as you were saying earlier, Caspar, you can't be 100%
Never 100% ahead.
And I've been caught by that on the river in situations where I'm confident I'm ahead.
Yeah.
And I put in a bet, and then I get raised.
I mean, Tom, I hear you. I think it's a good analysis of what Jack Alley's thinking, and I will not say for one moment, Jack Alley, that I haven't done that myself. But what proportion of times do we get a wily player in Stan's situation who flops a king there, bets out to make it the last thing in the world that he looks like he's got, yeah? Particularly he's got a full house, checks and checks. Probably wrong to check on the river, but it's the old Johnny Chan, isn't it? He wants Jack Alley to figure in for weakness.
Yeah, there's only so many things a poker player can do. So if they've done a slightly weird one, which, as you say, is check it there, that's actually one of not a very large number of combinations of checks and bets he can make. So he might well have the king.
So probably the wrong all-in on the river.
I think so, yeah. At least he didn't put himself in a position where he could get raised off it, but I'm not sure about the poker logic there.
Well, I don't know what I'm going to get you for your birthday, Tom, to be honest. You're not...
Just buy me in for a sit and go. And then run me a bath. and then leave, just to make it clear.
Yeah, probably gave a lot of people a rather unsettling image there, Tom, to be honest.
Well, there's the ace deuce suited. We had one of those earlier in small blind, and it provoked a bit of a discussion. In fact, Cass and I disagreed, but...
Well, I think it's a terrible hand. It's an awful hand. I put ace deuce along with pair of deuces in that it's a hand that's... I remember ace deuce was the hand that, what was his name, went out of the Poker Million to John Duthie with. Do you remember?
Clive Sinclair?
No. I was on the final table, young British upcoming poker player. Duthie had a pair of threes, as I recall. Oh, no. John Duthie had the ace deuce, that's right. And the young British guy wasn't...
Well, there you go.
It wasn't Julian Gardner, but he had ace deuce. Yeah, and the point was that John Duthie's play was, it was aggressive like it was throughout that game, but Nick and I spent a long time discussing it, and by a long time, about 4 hours, and just breaking it down. And the problem is with ace deuce is you're so rarely ahead. You're so rarely ahead, or you're so rarely ahead by anything that makes it. It's like the pair of twos. When you're ahead, you're ahead by very, very little. And when you're behind by a lot.
Well, now, Cass, I mean, you're absolutely right that your margin on the plus side is tiny, but you've got the overcard, you've got the 30%er against, say, pocket eights,
yeah,
for example, and against a hand that's dominating you. Well, ace 3, ace 4, ace 5, you're probably going to split the pot. It's pretty much 50-50, or one of you will catch your kicker. So there's...
What did you work out? 17% that they've got a better hand than you.
About 70%.
And when they've got a better hand than you, they've got a much better hand than you.
That's right, but not supremely better. They haven't got you locked up. So, and for me, there are so many hands that are going to call me there anyway, which are worse, and that adds up. King Jack, King 10, Queen 9.
Hang on a second.
It all adds up, and it's a very slim favourite in each case. But of course, the reason why I'm raising is for the folding equity. If there's no folding equity,
I understand.
I'm not interested.
Okay, slightly bigger favourite.
Oh, it was suited, Caspar. Don't put in ace deuce offsuit.
Ace deuce offsuit versus king 10 suited is a 53% favourite. Let's have another one. You'll make ace deuce suited if you wish. All right.
And both suits live.
And now I'm going to make it a jack 10 suited.
Yeah, that's a good example because obviously you'll get called by the jack 10 suited.
53% versus 45%.
Yeah, tiny.
It is tiny.
But they add up.
Dincy wee. Right, well, hang on, let's just put something stupid in. Hang on a second. I'm going to put 3. Now I put 3-10. All right, so ace deuce suited versus 3-10
I can tell you on Caspar. It's going to be 40%.
Yep, you're right. It's 62 versus 36. So that is
37.
2-1.
Hmm.
So that's slightly better.
Yeah. Anyway. He went on to win it by calling and folding, which was the play we liked least.
Versus ace 10, you're going to win 25% of the time.
Huge.
Against a bigger ace.
I tell you, if I get it all in and I'm 25%, I feel like I'm improving the game.
He's not wrong. I've seen him do it.
That's right. I was exactly 25%, wasn't I, with nut flush draw against top set. So
yes.
Classic 3-1 on the flop.
Yes.
But I was up against a formidable opponent.
In the AWP.
The AWPer.
God, she was drunk. No, it's not about that right now. It's about making jam and his decision as to how to extract the maximum.
Getting greedy there, early position.
It is greedy, isn't it?
Ah, well, he's done it right. He's provoked the raise.
I think that was his intention?
No. Well, even if it was, it's so un-fail-safe as to be a bit risky. What if Addy doesn't raise?
He's in a good situation now, though.
He is. Oh, it's glorious, isn't it? When you're on the bubble, you've got all the chips, everyone else is hoping to survive. I was having a look at a Sklansky book recently. No, it was a Malmouth book. No, it was a Sklansky book. And he was saying that your strategic advantage here is so strong as a big stack when other players are trying to avoid the bubble that you could throw a hand away like queens when someone has put themselves all in, because you want to keep 3 players in there and bleed them all, milk them all. Because if you play with the queens and take out the short stack, then the other players start playing. Now, I think this is excessive in my opinion, but his point is that if you can milk all three of your opponents slowly, you might get all their chips. Whereas if you just knock out the guy who's a short stack and take his chips, then the other players start playing against you.
But how do you milk them if you're not playing queens? What are you doing? You're just raising.
You're just stealing.
You're just stealing, right? Okay. So you're definitely not sitting back and allowing them to knock each other out. In fact, that's precisely the opposite of what you want to do.
I'm sure that's crazy. That's an absurd strategy. Because this is a dream strategic situation for you. Not now though, because they've gone through the bubble. Oh well, he's got an overcard. Not in good shape. Oh well, that changes everything. Now cool.
About 30% though, Tom, isn't it?
A long way behind. Yep.
King would do it. King does it.
Okay.
I'll do that again, I reckon.
That was silly.
Yeah. Don't know what prompted me to say that.
Let's see if we see signs of steaming from Jack Ali. He did put it in with the worst hand, so justice was done. Ooh. And they've both caught. Neither player raised before the flop. It looks like that would not have helped most players, but it helped them both a bit.
Did you establish whether one of your friends had sent in the email about the hay wain?
No, it wasn't a friend at all.
Isn't that weird then?
It is, yeah. I was in the gallery myself watching that painting for some time.
Jack Ali in bad shape now. What do you think, Tom? Another small blind move there with King 6. He's committed for 160 at the time. Would you be raising King 6, small blind? Three-handed?
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
I'm more likely to do it with Queen 10. I'm more likely to do it with Queen 7, I think.
Into the big stack?
Yeah, I don't think, in fact, it makes that much difference.
Well, I think the size of stack does affect people's propensity to call you, and I think if you're going to make a raise like that into the big stack and you want them to put it down, I think you've got to make a bet that's sizable enough to hurt their stack. I think if you just raise it to 640, you're basically giving a big stack, for an extra 320, he can at least see the flop with you.
He's going 3 to 1, yeah, that's the wrong price to charge, you're right.
Poor old Jack Ali, hand got counterfeited there, hit the 2 on the flop, turned into 2 pairs with the ace kicker.
He's all in now, no nonsense, and he's got himself a little straight draw with his dominated ace. Still at the draw, but the 8 has hit. No good.
Bad luck, Jack.
Oh, well, he made the money this time.
Yes, he did.
48 for third.
So making jam, calls with his ace 2, hand of the night, ace 2 and jacks, obviously. Oh, and the jacks have just hit. But not
no
good enough.
Not good enough.
Making jam. Making jam makes hay. Couldn't mix jam and hay, could that be a mess?
It would be a mess.
I
Yeah.
bet a horse would eat it, though. I bet a horse would find it lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely sweet hay. Read an email and save me.
Lord Sam, great show as usual. Just a quick question on bots. Do you think a lot of online opponents are bots? As I was playing a guy the other night who was playing 10 tables at the same time. I have enough problems playing 1 table. So if you're playing against a bot, should it be easier to win against a bot, as it should be easier to bluff a pot against a bot, as it wouldn't call your raise
Is this in poem? This is rhyme.
with no hands? It might do if it thinks you're bluffing. Look forward to your views on bots.
Keyword
Many
here is
thanks.
bots.
Thanks a lot, Lord Sam. 10 tables is quite a lot of tables to play, I would say.
If you're
You've got to
mentalist.
You've got to be suspicious. But I think a bot worth its name would call you with a rubbish hand if, King High, if its data said that you're very light to bluff in this situation.
It's all about your propensity, isn't it?
It's all about your propensity, yeah.
Your
That's
likelihood.
what gives you your pot odds.
Yeah. and quite obviously the bot is absolutely right to take that into account. That's exactly what it should be taking into account. I mean, bots are limited in their ability to play you no limit. I bet they have exactly the same problem that Turbo Texas Hold'em used to have with no limit play, which is the all-in. I bet.
I've only got the limit version, so I don't know
Oh, really?
what the tournament version is
Okay.
like.
Well, the tournament version was very, very, very bad at dealing with all-in bets.
And what do you know? Well, presumably, the thing about Turbo is you could look at its strategy. What did it decide to call with? Just a range
I'll
of
be honest
hands?
with you, I never understood that bit of the programme. I used to go in there and go,
It's brilliant because
What?
you can actually see its calling propensities for each hand in each situation.
what? I used to
But
say.
you've got to be bothered to go and have a look at it.
I was bothered. I was just stupid.
Or you've got to be intelligent to go and look at it. One or the other. But, well, that's what we feel about bots, Lord Sam.
I don't think we've made it very clear. I mean, bots are a bit of a growing problem, aren't they?
Bots.
Yeah.
We're talking about robots here, in case you're not aware.
I can't believe how unprofessional you're being tonight.
We're talking about artificial intelligence that's patrolling the web and making its makers a fortune. But I mean, presumably anyone who's playing 10 tables with a bot is going to get picked up on fairly quickly by the sites that ban bots.
That is a good point. Absolutely. Well, the first thing you should do in that event is report them to the site, shouldn't you?
You should, and if you're a player who can play 10 tables at once, then contact the site in advance saying, come and watch me do it, I can do it, I'm not a bot. But they might still take all your money.
Sites will withhold, they'll freeze accounts
Yeah.
if they suspect that someone is using bots, and there are a lot of different things that they can do to verify that. And playing 10 tables, I mean, I think it's possible for a human being to do that, but it depends how well was he doing. Was he making good calls and reads and all the rest of it? I don't know. But yeah, I don't think it becomes necessarily easier to bluff a pot against a bot. What you have to do, actually, I think we can agree on this against a bot, the way in which you can use your human intelligence to outplay a bot is by varying your game enormously, isn't it? Mm-hmm. That's precisely what you should do, because what a bot does is adjust to patterns, so the one thing it can't do is adjust to continual variation.
He's right. Stay one step ahead of the bot, and it will guaranteed it will make the wrong decision. Because it probably won't decide what you're doing and then decide how you're going to vary your game. That would be an incredibly sophisticated
No, I don't
learning
think you can do that
algorithm for
at
a
all.
bot.
Yeah.
So mix it up. Thanks, Lord Sam. Let's get back to the poker then. Back to 25, 50% cash. Look, Snap It, he's had a renaissance. He was down to 37 a minute ago.
He's playing quite a low game as well, isn't he, for Snap It?
He is. Maybe Snap It is playing 10 of these at once.
Are you saying that Mr. Hawkins is a bot?
No, I don't think a bot would be capable of those articulate posts on the forum.
Or those photos on his homepage?
Yeah, or the libelous spoof newspaper articles, I might add.
I know people could Google our names, you know, looking to hire me for a corporate do or something, and then find out that I'm addicted to sherbet and not see the joke.
Well, at least you haven't got pornographic photos of monkeys on your hard drive. Well, you may have, but you haven't been rumbled by the press. Naked baboons grooming each other.
Do you feel rumbled?
Oh, I guess I had it coming.
I think if you do it in the name of science, it's all right, isn't it?
That's what my defence counsel is working on.
Sorry for this cough. You probably want any other presenter who's healthy, don't you, apart from this? Horrible.
Gary Glitter bets it up.
Talking of hard drives.
Mm-hmm. And, well, it's an interesting river situation. Firebird can only beat a bluff, and Gary Glitter doesn't know if he needs to or not. So there's a limp with Queen Jack suited, and a limp from 5-4 suited. And I don't like to diss a low stakes game, but that's kind of what you expect, isn't it?
If you're Queen Jack suited and it's already been limped in first position by 5-4 suited, and it's a low-stakes passive table, I don't hate that call.
Yes, if he's responding to the table for that reason, yeah.
Yeah, because the interesting thing about an early limper in a lot of games makes it much more likely that it's not going to be raised up.
In some games, not in a higher stakes game.
Not in a higher stakes game. In a limit game, makes it almost cast iron. It's not going to be raised up.
That's interesting, Caspar. And why is that?
Because they realise that
The late position players.
the late position players know that they're not going to get rid of the early position players. So the only effect of a raise would be a pot building raise. And if you've got all but the very best cards, and in fact even in the very best cards, it's arguable that the equity that you give away by revealing your hand is more than compensated by the is not compensated by the increased equity that you've got by increasing the pot.
I see your logic.
In fact, one of the arguments is that if you're in a relatively passive table on a limit game, you're better off raising in last position. If you've got like four callers in front of you, you're better off raising in last position with Jack 10 suited than anything else, to build the pot, to give you the pot odds to draw on the flop and turn.
You see, the way this is going, Caspar, because I've always been conscious with limit, and I sat down in another sit and go the other day and found I was playing limit. I was really naffed off about it.
Do you know what, mate? For a bright man, you do that an awful lot.
It's because I don't. It's not on my radar, so I don't.
No, it might not be. I think you'll find it's on your computer screen before you actually.
Well, all right, but personally, I don't feel I should have to worry about details like that. But anyway, the point I'm coming to is that what's always been clear to me, and I guess everyone, is that since by the river in a multi-way pot, the pot is very often big that you're getting odds to draw to pretty much anything. And if people are just calling before the flop for the same reason that they can't raise, so you're getting a flop situation with lots of players, which is only going to get worse. It seems to me that in limit Texas Hold'em, these calculations that show what hand is likely to be ahead in a showdown are really quite accurate.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, what a doddle. Just go through, get out Wilson software or a poker calculator like the one on the Hendon Bob, find out what all the expectations are for hands in 4, 5, 6-way pots, and just go from there. That's not poker, that's maths.
Well, it's the
Mason Malmouth, are you watching?
It's the role that maths plays in poker, and let's be absolutely clear, is then comes down to what's the phrase that limit players use more than anything? Did I miss a bet there? No, I mean, they ask all sorts of things like where are the toilets and what time's the buffet and all sorts of things like that. But when they're talking to each other, one of the common phrases is, did I miss a bet? Because it's about, once you know your win ratio in that particular situation, extracting the most amount of money from it. But yes, you're absolutely right. You can make a very, very accurate prediction as to whether you're going to win the hand or not. The actions of your opponents will not affect whether you win the hand or not. They'll affect your overall profitability. But because you only make one big bet an hour, that's very important.
And out of interest, given that in the middle part of the game, you're basically playing the expectation of your hand against random hands, you know, in an extreme situation, is the point where you make or you miss your bet often going to be on the river?
It's a common one, Tom, I'll be honest with you. It is a big one. I mean, I obviously, conforming to the model of learning that I was talking about last night with Michelle, I obviously know more about poker now than I did when I was in the thick of it. You know, certainly in my second year, let's say. There are certain statistics and things like that I'm not as sharp on. But in terms of the amount that I cogently understand the game, I'm better now than I was when I was in the thick of actually playing. And I think one of the big leaks for me was the river. But let's be clear, the thing about limit poker, the reason why it's, I think, just fallacious to compare it with no limit is it's like comparing internet poker with live poker and saying, oh, internet poker, you know, is easier stroke harder because you can't read your opponent. But the point is, it's like that for everyone. So the arguments about limit poker are variously, oh, you can't make your opponent make mistakes. Right? But your opponent can't make you make mistakes. oh, you can't, you're not going to lose that much, therefore it's much easier, right? But your opponent isn't going to lose that much, therefore it's harder to get money from him. The fact is that the game changes for everyone. Look at that, 4 jacks, Tom.
Now, if he gets a couple of aces,
would he have a Mayfair?
He'd have a Mayfair, yeah.
Brilliant. But Firebird has the flush draw for what it's worth.
How much is it worth?
It's very little, I think. $1 on that occasion, and now nothing to Gary. Unless Firebird fancies a pop at this. Because of the scary board, remember the principle, if the board's scary, it's scary for everyone. Oh, it's good for Gary, he's made another couple of dollars from it. Gary's sitting there thinking frantically about what Firebird will possibly call. Unfortunately, the answer is nothing.
Am I wrong here? Has Firebird actually got the worst possible hand you can have?
Yeah.
Trip jacks and deuce three. Poker Theory says you're more likely to bluff there.
Well, he's playing the board, isn't he, Firebird?
Oh yeah, so one of, but a truly pathetic holding. Did he call in the end, hoping to?
So he's more likely to bluff there than any other situation because that's the only possible chance he could have to win.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he didn't call, looking to split it.
So yeah, that's the thing about limit poker. It's if you judge it by no limit standards, then of course it has lots of shortcomings. But the point is, because they are not deficiencies, but because they are limitations for everyone involved in the game, the skills necessary become just different. They become different. What I will always maintain, go to my grave maintaining, is you're absolutely right, Tom. That maths, obviously, it's not pure maths. There's a lot of poker involved in there, but because that maths is so strong, limit players have a good solid grounding to go on to play good no limit play. And I'll tell you what, I think there's very strong evidence of that. This is going to be a very controversial comment for the evening, but it may at least inspire some emails coming in. I think the Americans in general are still better players of the game of poker than the Europeans are, and they all start playing limit. They didn't start playing no limit. I know there's a generation from Doyle and Amarillo's time that played no limit hold'em in the wilds of Texas, and TJ talks about the comet's tail of that. But in the main, these guys started off playing limit hold'em in the casinos, and they are beating British players when it comes to the big no limit tournaments now on the WPT and Monte Carlo Millions and everything else.
In defence of the rest of the world, there are a lot more American poker players. Yeah, a huge number of poker players.
You sound like a golfer now.
I sound like a golfer.
Anti-American Ryder Cup arguments. Let's just bow down to our transatlantic cousins, better at poker and war.
Well, they also have a bigger army.
They're the worst warmongers in the world. Not, just in their desires, but in their actual execution. Blue on blue.
We've got an email here from Snap-It, who's playing down there in seat 6. Evening both. I'm watching and playing from my mum's at the moment. She's fascinated. Good. A couple of points. On your comments about me calling with my pocket twos, I've recently developed a particular strategy for playing low pairs which has shown real dividends. I'm not going to say what it is while playing this game, as I don't want to let my opponents have this info. However, I will post it on the forum sometime this week. You have previously discussed it, so nothing radical. I've got a feeling I might know what it is, but I won't blow your cover, Snap-It. And there you go, quick plug for the forums. You can see what intelligent postings we get there. Snap-It will be talking about pocket twos and their hidden value.
Well, okay, hang on a second. Couple of points to make. First of all, it is our job to talk about the game. So with all due respect to Ken, I'm going to throw myself into the pocket pairs.
You can't do that.
Well,
let him up and leave.
That's our job.
No, come off it. We wouldn't be talking about it if he hadn't emailed the show. We can't talk about it.
This happened an hour ago, what we're watching now, or 10 minutes ago.
But you're only guessing what his strategy is because he emailed the show.
No, I'm just going to talk about the classic strategy for playing pocket pairs.
Well, if it's a classic and not what Snap-It
No.
is.
I don't know what... That's the thing, I don't know what Snap-It's referring to.
All right.
So I'm just going to say, the way that you would play a pair of pocket twos or any pocket pair is you get in very, very cheaply and you release them on the flop if they miss. And if they hit, then you have massive implied odds. And the argument is, do the implied odds overcome and account for the losses that you make? Because if it were a mathematical showdown, people are playing pocket twos in those situations in what would be mathematically incorrect situations. Yes, agreed?
Mm-hmm.
So they're definitely not receiving the pot odds. You know, if you're playing twos, you could be playing against another pair of fours, a dominating pair, plus 3 or 4 overcards. Twos are in terrible shape. However, if they do hit a 2 on the flop, then they're going to make a lot of money, and hopefully, when they win, more than pay for those when they lose. However, my point is always that twos are just rubbish. And one of the ways in which twos are rubbish is because they suddenly suffer from reverse implied odds, given the number of hands that can be against them and hit higher trips.
Does happen every now and then.
And it only happens to happen every now and again to cost you your whole stack.
Yeah. Well, we're guessing though what Snappet's special twist is, secret formula. But in the meantime, what we're going to do before our break is we're going to take ourselves over to our multi-table tourney, just to remind ourselves that it exists, and to touch base, as they say. And it's the $1,000 crazy free roll.
Oh, fantastic.
I don't know why it's called that, because there's actually $3,260 in the prize pool. 326 entrants, wow. Oh, I've got my wires crossed. So I'll give you some information on that when I've got more reliable information. Anyway, for the time being we can say that it's green, it's no limit. And they're all playing splendid poker. Ah, I have that information now. Here it is, 71 tables, 568 entrants. 80 places paid. 12-minute blinds. And 250 to the winner. It's a free roll. It didn't cost these players a penny to get in.
How do they get in then, Tom?
Possibly just by signing up, being there at the right time. Possibly they earned the right to from playing on some other game for which they did pay. I don't know, Caspar.
But those are the ways you can get into a free roll.
They are.
Pair of nines versus ace king, top pair, top 2 pairs. Is Daisy worried about the jack?
What jack? There's no jack, Caspar. What are you talking about?
There was no jack, but she might have been worried about the potential jack making a straight for some lucky hunter.
Ah, so she wasn't just concerned with her own hand. She realised the board was such that if someone had a jack in their hand, they would have a straight.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. Excuse me.
Blinds at 50-100, so, well, not huge compared to some of the stacks, but a real problem for J-Red. Schwalala.
Are you doing your
Mikey
friend again?
Hez.
Is that your friend? Is that an impression of your friend?
Neil Channing?
The tra-la-la. Is that...
No, I don't particularly do impressions of him.
It sounded a bit like Snoop, actually. Tra-la-la.
Well, it probably doesn't sound like Neil Channing if it sounds like Snoop.
Oh, the two sound very different.
Yes, they do. And the chap in seat 7 there, Night for Hawk, is our chip leader. Well done, sir.
Yep, it's a big old stack. Compared to which, Milky Hess and... Oh, Schwalala, that's where it's coming from.
Yeah, I wasn't just singing to...
I thought you were. It sounded quite nice. So don't be embarrassed. But he's low on chips, isn't he? Whatever his name is.
Yeah.
7 big blinds in his stack. He's in trouble.
Trouble. It's not a bad free roll. With blinds rising every 12 minutes, there's quite a lot of play.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I agree. Kovacs there, with ace queen suited. And that's a big raise, 26 times the big blind, and I'll wager that that's an example of something we're going to see a few times in this tournament, which is probably imperfect play, really. What do you think, Tom? The old free roll.
Oh, I defer to you on that one, Caspar, because I wasn't listening.
Okay.
I was checking the emails. What did you say?
It's just we saw 26 times the big blind opening raise just before, and I think that's an example of something we'll see, from time to time in a free roll, with all due respect, which is some bad play every now and again.
Yeah, unless he's got knowledge we don't have to suggest that he'll get called.
Absolutely.
By a worse hand.
Yeah.
But generally not. Jacks versus Ace King. Well, this is the drama of Hold'em. We're seeing unfurling before us. Werner takes a view about the Queen, which is that it's not connected with his opponent, and bets correctly. His opponent was drawing to a 12%er. Well, Mikey Hess, what's the man to do? 210. He's got no stealing, folding equity now, whatever you want to call it. Oh, that's the way to make queens into winner. Make a straight. When there's no flush draw for your opponent, he takes it down. Mikey Hess, now knowing he has no folding equity, can't push out a big blind because his big blind will be correct to call with pretty much anything. Is now just looking for a hand that is statistically better than one that he can expect to get before he puts in his big blind.
And we still take Queen 7 suited to be the average hand.
Yes, although
it's a problematic.
Yeah, because the high hands have a much better chance of winning a pot than the low ones. So I'd go for something slightly better than Queen 7. But also I'm looking for cards that like to be live.
How can we do both, Tom? Big cards, better than Queen 7, unlikely to be live.
Yeah, but say Jack 9. So I've gone down with my high card, but I've gone up with my kicker. Better chance of being live. To be honest, if you're going to ponder about how to improve your poker game and make it better, this is not the area in which you should be doing work, wondering what hands you should go all in with, because at this stage, a wrong decision doesn't really make much difference. Whereas if you make a bad decision with a big bluff when you're the chip leader, that costs you a lot.
Yes, very true.
Unfortunately, it's much harder to decide what the right thing to do is in those sorts of situations, because your action will be the result of a number of preceding bits of action, so you'll have a lot more information than Mikey Hess has got to work with. Yeah, 7-8 no good for me either. Oh, and Jay Redlin folded there even though Werner had not raised, so it's rather looking like he's been disconnected. But no, even if he was disconnected, he'd still see a flop. That's very strange. That's strange. That's all right. Wonder what he's going to do next.
Who's that?
Jay Redlin. He's in absentia, I think.
Which you sometimes get with free rolls, don't you? Because people get signed up and then
don't
actually turn up on the day. Do you know he's called Joe?
No.
No.
I was playing on a site the other day, and they had a very good thing. I thought when the tournament started, it required you to click a box saying that you were present and correct. And if you didn't, you were just folded out.
Ejected. Oh, no.
Not ejected. You were sat in, but you didn't get this crazy situation when a multi-table tourney starts, where you sit down, fresh and eager, and half the table aren't there for the first hand, and it times down each player.
Oh no, they do that on the site where I play.
Okay.
They've always done that, yeah.
Oh,
you have to say that you're there.
Yeah, this is the first site I've signed up to which does that.
Oh, really?
I thought it was a great innovation.
Oh, yeah, no, I couldn't bear the opposite, to be honest with you.
No, because it's a self-fulfilling thing, because half the people aren't there, the other half don't bother to turn up either, because they can't be bothered to wait around for them all to be timed out. And we lose Mickey Hess. Well, he didn't have much juice left in his valves. Bit of a pot shaping up here. 9-Jack for the implied odds. I let it go myself, Caspar, because I don't like my 9 and my Jack if I hit them. But I know lots of people will call the 9-Jack there for the implied odds. How are you feeling about it? fruity?
Yeah, I'm all right actually, Tom. I probably would there. And do you know what? I actually hate 9-Jack. I really hate 9-Jack.
It's a dog.
I mean, Queen 10 is bad. 9-Jack is worse, I think. And but the reason I do is just because, well, there are two reasons. Because I'm playing there against two players who've got a lot of money in their stack, and I've got a lot of money in my stack. Compared to the big blind, that's a lot of implied odds. And I'm on the button. And actually, those two things combined are more than enough for me to do that. For me to call.
You're not wrong, Caspar. I mean, those are strong things. I mean, for me, it's simply that even being on the button, I don't particularly like a 9 or a jack. Not massively.
No, I agree with you. But that's why it's a judgment call, because with Queen 10, once you get to Queen 10 suited, I still think that's a bad hand, but then I definitely would call. Do you know what I mean? So it's a combination of the cards and the situation there.
Smoothcut says, hi guys, just wanted your thoughts on what my action should have been on a hand I played last night. I had pocket kings and I raised 4 times the big blind and I got 1 caller. Flop was all rags, unconnected. I bet the pot and got called. Turn was another rag. 2 suited cards on the board. I bet the pot again and got called again. The river card was an ace. What was he calling with? I checked and he bet half the pot. A considerable sum by then, clearly. I folded and he showed me he had knout in the chat box after he said he knew I must have had cards, so he represented the ace. In hindsight, I feel maybe I should have continued betting into the pot and he would have had to fold. But then he may have been calling my sucker bets into his hidden trips. Please put this hand out of my head. Normally I don't dwell and accept my play was right or wrong. Tricky one, isn't it? It's all or nothing there. He's either ahead or behind.
What do you think, Tom?
Well, I'm going to have a look at the pot and say, well, if he's bet half the pot, I'm getting 3 to 1 to call this. So I've only got to be right a quarter of the time. If he's got an ace in his hand, it's less likely one is going to come. That's one thing to bear in mind. Trips. Would he have bet on the turn? To make sure, I'm not clear here what position you were in. If he was in first position to act, would he have not led out with trips? I don't know. I mean, in that situation, which I face myself, smooth cut, where I've lost sight of where I am, I look at the pot odds and then I just say to myself, what is the chance he's bluffing here? 3 to 1? Depends how I feel. Probably I'm going to call. Probably I'm going to call. As you can see, it's possible that he's gotten out. It's a tricky one. It's a tricky one. Any more enlightening observations, Caspar?
Well, isn't the key that his opponent played it badly?
So since he's played it badly, he's capable of putting in a bluff. Is that the logic?
No, I'm saying since he's played it badly, that Smooth Cut's worried about it. But I would say those are the things that could really get to you. When your opponent's play something badly, his opponent needed that ace to fall for him to win that hand, didn't he?
It did, but it doesn't matter that he's played it badly. The thing is, Smooth Cut's play on the river was catastrophically bad. I mean, that's clear.
Because he folded to an ace.
Cool, because he folded to nothing.
To nothing, yeah, but he folded to an ace on the board. Was it catastrophic?
Well, it was, because if it's possible to call when your opponent hasn't got it and to fold when he has, which in theory it is possible.
Absolutely it is possible.
Then it's catastrophic.
Yeah.
If there's nothing you can do about it, then yeah, that's just too bad. But could he have called?
We don't know what the pot odds were. That's what you're talking about.
No, we do know the pot odds. It's 3 to 1. But we don't know anything about the psychological qualities of his opponent.
I think he should have called with 3 to 1, but I still think that the reason why it's bugging him is because this guy basically made 2 calls on the flop and turn that he shouldn't have done, and then got lucky.
No, I don't think that. I think Smooth Cut's being completely rational here. He doesn't really care about the fact that his opponent might lose money or win money in the long run. He just knows he lost a big pot.
Yeah.
And I think I share that rational worry.
Yeah. With 3 to 1.
With 3 to 1, yeah. Do you want to get suckered or do you want to pass up on a big pot?
We don't know.
We don't know. I mean, if we had more information, if we'd been looking over your shoulder, Smooth Cut, when you were playing for the last hour, we probably would have had an opinion, clearer opinion than it's 3 to 1. Do you think there's a 1 in 4 chance that he's bluffing? But I can't say here. Like, some players will be bluffing, some won't. Some will be bluffing exactly 1 time in 4.
Do you know something interesting? James says that he likes to have a tight image because he likes to know what other people think of him because therefore it shows where he is in the hand.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of sense in that.
But here, His opponent said, I knew you must have cards, so when the ace comes down, I know that you don't have ace-king, and I'm fairly sure that you don't have an ace.
Mm-hmm.
And he's used that projection of the fact that this guy's got kings, queens, or top pair against him. So it actually blows holes in James's argument, doesn't it? It's actually a bad thing for someone to know exactly where you are.
Unless James is sophisticated to know which players know that he likes to know where he is, and which players who don't, in which case then he's at the right level of X-raying, if you like. But yeah, we don't know what your image was, Smooth Cut, you know. But it seems like his logic was fine, wasn't it? I mean, his opponent's logic was good, and it worked very nicely.
Well, as it happened, the ace fell. But yep,
that's true. He had to catch the ace. Well, we've got to take a break here. I'm quite perturbed by that, Smooth Cut. We feel your pain, but come back in 7 minutes for more Poker Night Live. Welcome back to Poker Night Live, brought to you tonight by myself, Dr. Tom, and Mr. Caspar Berry. We've got a truckload of emails to get through here, so we'll whip through a few before we go back to our multi-table tournament. We've got one here from Phil, who says, "Hi guys, this is the first time I've emailed in. I've been playing poker for a few years now, and I've enjoyed the show for many months." I'm glad to hear it, Phil. I've got two questions, mainly relating to a live tournament game, one that I played at a casino last week. Firstly, I am mainly a tight, aggressive player, especially at the casino where there are a lot of fishes who will pay me off, and I generally just wait for good cards and then make them pay. At one point in the tourney last week, I picked up pocket jacks in third position and I made a pot size raise. One guy called me and was all in with 50 fewer chips than mine, and another guy called me who still had chips left. For some inexplicable reason, I thought I was all in and I turned over my hand for the whole table to see. I still had 200 chips left. I was told that this meant my hand was dead, and I took no further part in the pot, even though I would have won, making trip jacks. Oh dear. And I lost all the chips I had originally committed to the pot. Was this a correct decision? I was so gutted with the move at the time that I didn't bother calling over the tournament director. Secondly, well, let's have a look at that first. I mean, there's a difference between saying you can no longer act in the hand and deeming that your hand is dead and can't win even if it's the best hand at showdown. The tournament director has discretion to rule as he sees fit here, because much of it is based on whether you are deemed to have made the move intentionally in order to affect the action. And here, you don't say how many chips were in the middle, but when you had 200 chips left, if the number of chips in the middle was very large compared to that, it seems a very harsh decision there, when you have very little room to act, to deem certainly that your hand is dead, or even that you can't act if it was a mistake. Of course, you're at a massive disadvantage anyway, just by having declared your hand.
That's the key point here. I mean, this is why this is a mental ruling, and it comes down to people's fundamental ignorance of poker, which is that what you're doing when you're showing your hand is putting yourself at a massive disadvantage.
Normally, yes.
Yeah, well, heads up. Heads up. You should never do it three-way. You must never ever do it if there's more than one other player in the pot. But if you're doing it heads up, the point about I wanted to show my aces, you know, to try and get him to fold because I wanted the pot. Well, that's fine, but he still has the choice, Tom, doesn't he?
He does. Yes.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, you may have made it really clear that you have a pair of aces, and there may be a tournament director who could infer from that you've gained some sort of advantage. I would argue to the death that you haven't. All you've done is empower the guy with a knowledge from which he can still make his own decision. If he still wants to call you, that's his decision. You haven't won the hand axiomatically by showing aces or by showing the nuts. You've just empowered the guy with the knowledge. So I think it's an awful ruling on so many levels. However, I think that if it's the rules of the house, then that nullifies everything that Tom and I are saying. If it's the rules of the house, then the fact of the matter is you can't show your hand, and the ruling would have stood whoever made it. You shouldn't be discretionary about these things if it's the rules of the house.
I mean, most of the places I've been in where I've asked about this ruling is that they say, if pushed, that it's at their discretion and it's based on intentionality. Because these people, they want to protect beginners who come into the game. You're obviously not a beginner, Phil, but if someone comes in and he makes this mistake and then he's told his hand is dead, he's not going to come back, and that's bad for the casino, and it's bad for him, and it's bad for the players who want to have a game spread every night. So, you know, I think you have to have some leeway there, and I think you were unfairly done by. Where was it, out of interest, Phil? Yeah,
and I think he should certainly have been able to win the money that was already in the pot.
Yeah.
No more betting, fine. That's the limit of the punishment that I would have taken.
If you do it again, then hand is dead. You know, you're a repeat offender. But I think you were.
I don't even agree with that, Tom.
You still think it's
yeah,
it gets annoying for players if people are exposing their hands. You don't know if they're mucking around or not.
But it comes down to this thing: you should never ever do it with 3 or more players in the hand. Categorically not. But if it's heads up, I think it's your decision. I think if you want to bring in a rule that says it's not, that's fine. But with this being hazy, I'm with Nick. I don't like it, but I'm with Nick. Your cards are your cards to do as you want with. And if you want to show them to your opponent, you're an idiot. But it's your choice.
Well, Caspar, I can't disagree with the logic of what you're saying. I just think that many poker players will be annoyed in the card room if players do that, and so the tournament director is trying to prevent these perceived irregularities.
Okay, and I'm not standing on this for principle because I think there's an interesting point here. Why would they be annoyed?
Because poker players are riddled with habit, and they don't like unusual things
That's
happening.
exactly what it is, yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's not because you've put them at a disadvantage or you're cheating or you're gaining an advantage or anything like that. It's because they're riddled with habit.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. Because they're just grumpy conservatives with a small c, I've seen this. I've seen a bloody great row in Las Vegas erupt over this because this old Texan guy thought it was offensive. And it's like, all right, the argument had nothing to do with the subject matter of the conversation at hand. Because if you actually sat him down and said, why is it offensive? It just offended his belief in what poker should be, which is a cards-down game.
Yeah.
That's irrelevant.
But then are you going to stand up to some huge Texan with a gun in his pocket and say, you're being irrational? I'll do what I want.
Anyone in Las Vegas casinos is packing firearms, Tom.
Okay. Should we move on to the second point of Phil here?
Yes.
Who says, secondly, you guys often talk about your table image and how to play to your table image, but what do I do when my image, tile aggressive, is known to some and not to others? To illustrate the point, last week when I raised with those jacks, a guy folded saying, I'm not entering that, you must have a pocket pair. He folded King 10, a playable hand for that player usually. Oh dear. But I was called by 10-8 suited and 9-3 suited. Any help will be appreciated. Well, it's good that you're posing such a sophisticated question. I think you obviously know the answer, Phil, if you're capable of posting it, is that you should be aware that your table image is different for different people. And play accordingly. Play the man, not the cards. Well, that also means play the man's appreciation of your table image, not just your table image. So we're moving now into quite sophisticated areas. But I think you'll find, if you've got your nonce on properly, that you can make the right decisions on that basis, provided you know what your image is for the various players at the table. Happy calculations.
There's a bigger point here.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right. We'll get to the poker in a minute. Caspar, what's the bigger point?
Well, we'll kick this off and then we'll get to a game as soon as possible. Okay. Here's the bigger point. The bigger point is, I think that's worked out perfectly for him. The King 10, which he's basically sort of 45, 50, shot with, has folded, right? That's the hand we want to fold. And these two massive dogs, 10-8 suited and 9-3 suited, have called him. See, for me, that's Christmas. For me, that's exactly what I want to happen with a pair of jacks. Yesterday we had an email from a guy who said, when I made my usual point about, with aces, it doesn't matter how many callers you get. He said, well, of course it does, because you don't want hands like a pair of sixes and Jack 10 suited calling to see the flop and then folding if they make nothing and then extracting massive implied odds if they hit it. Yeah, so they're right about that. You don't want a lot of hands to be in that situation, right? It was a good email, it was absolutely right. But where do we draw the line here? I mean, with a pair of jacks, my understanding about the way that poker works and is played is that you will make money because other players will make incorrect calls. This guy, Phil, is implying that he wants a tight, aggressive image and he wants to be able to make a play and to get for people to put their hands down every time. I would say the perfect situation is you have a pair of jacks and you're called by 10-8 suited and 9-3 suited.
So he's already doing automatically what he needs to be doing to exploit the variegation of the different players.
But he's complaining about it.
Well, is he complaining?
He's worried about it. Yeah, I think he is. I think he's worried. He's going, and I was called by 10-8 suited and 9-3 suited. Why didn't they put their hand down? And I would say, Phil, it's great. It's great that they called. But my question, as we go back to the game, is when do we want calls and when do we not want calls?
When we have expectation, Caspar.
No, you see. An expectation is not just the mathematical expectation, is it? It's the expectation taking into account what those guys are going to do on the flop.
Yes, and the turn. And the river. And how it affects our image in the future, and whether they lose all their money. Expectation is a long river of webbed possibilities.
Do you wonder why? Do you wonder why every morning at 2 o'clock when I do a show with you, I just come to the conclusion that all poker analysis is dead? Do you wonder why? I mean, it's like an entropic process doing a show with you. It just all breaks down into mush at the end of 4 hours every time. I come in full of hope.
Well, I don't know what to say, Caspar, about that.
Let's go to a game.
Yeah, let's go to a game. Look, it's a tournament, and everyone knows they are pure luck. So we don't have to worry about expectation here. Any advice we give is purely intended to be an embellishment of the drama.
You're being facetious there, aren't you?
Yeah, we do need a strap along the bottom that says being facetious.
Yeah, because some people might turn off at that point and never know, and literally turn off in disgust going, that doctor, he doesn't know anything.
Well, they might do that, Caspar, or they might turn their set off and say, that's what I always thought. I'll go down to Matroni now. You never know.
That's right, it's all probability.
Also, there's a case for saying, tell people what they want to hear, and lots of people would be relieved, I think.
Do you think you're P.T. Barnum now? Is that where you are mentally?
What, never give a sucker an even break?
Giving the people what they want?
Oh, is that what you did? I mean, you walk into a casino and you've got all these people playing roulette and big wheel and whatever, games of obvious chance, and then you've got a few hardcore in the card room. Presumably the people who are playing roulette or big wheel, if they could reliably believe that poker was a game of luck, they'd be more than happy to come and sit down, but they don't want to. You look at me like I made a point that makes no sense whatsoever.
No, I'm not. No, I'm thinking about it.
Oh, okay.
I've just got that kind of face.
Sceptical.
But surely they do play poker, don't they, these people?
Many don't. Most don't, in fact.
I don't think that's the impediment. You're saying the reason they don't play poker is because they think it's a game of skill,
Yeah.
and I don't think that's the impediment to them playing poker. I think the impediment to them playing poker is that it looks like a very scary room with a lot of people who know what they're doing, and the floor staff are invariably very rude. That's exactly what I'm sorry, that's exactly what it's like. You go to a poker room in Las Vegas, the floor staff are rude. They do not encourage people to sit down and have a punt. That's why when I first started, I started in the Luxor, and I recommend the Luxor. Sandra, the shift manager, who, made sure that Frank and the rest of the dealers looked after me. And that's very rare.
I must say, my experience of UK card rooms is much more positive.
Mine's not.
Oh, isn't it?
No.
Oh dear, well perhaps they're just rude to you, Caspar.
Well, that's upset me.
Well, maybe, I don't know, maybe you had a bad night. They were just having a rude night that night, trying it out, see if it improved the take.
I don't think that people don't play poker because they think it's a game of skill. I think they don't know what to do. I think they do genuinely see a very male-dominated environment. It's a very different atmosphere. It's not like the rest of the... I think the poker room is as different to the rest of a normal casino as, the restaurant is different, as a football game would be different. I just think they perceive it as being a completely different environment. And I think if we could break down that wall, Tom, if we could tear down the rails, then I think a lot of them would play much more poker. And hell, when I was playing in Vegas, poker was a minority sport. Now millions of people around the world play it and watch it on television and all the rest of it. That's because of educational rest, and a lot of those players are gambling.
But aren't the people coming into the card rooms coming from the stock markets rather than from the roulette wheel? I mean, anyone who plays, for my money, Caspar, call me a snob, but anyone who plays roulette, how can they walk into a card room? If they're capable of walking into a card room, then they wouldn't be playing roulette.
Well, I hope I'm not going to be speaking out of turn about someone now, but,
Unless it's a bent wheel.
Actually, let's not use names. There are very well-known household names, ex-world champions, who play an awful lot of craps and roulette.
Well, it never ceases to surprise me.
That's a good point, but I do think you're such a rationalist, Tom, that you find it very difficult to understand that anyone could not be such a rationalist.
Okay, take a...
It's not a question of being snobby.
Well, it is snobby.
It's unempathetic. It's not that you're not sympathetic.
No, if you want to blow your money playing craps, fine. It's no worse than blowing it on rare orchids if you get your rocks off with rare orchids.
Right, I understand.
But the players playing sort of 50p blackjack, who are... What is my point, Caspar?
I don't know, Tom, because I do think what you just said there is very significant. I think that I've played blackjack and roulette in a casino before. That's how I got involved in poker. Was going to Las Vegas for holidays and playing blackjack, and it's incredibly good fun. And exactly as you just said there, I would pay it playing blackjack, or I'd play it in a bar, or I'd pay it in a nightclub, or I'd pay it going 10-pin bowling, I'd pay it in a casino, in a cinema. I'm just buying fun.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just buying fun. That doesn't make me a gambler. I mean, there's an awful lot of nonsense. As I'm sure you have the same experience that I have, walking around and saying to people, I'm a commentator on PokerZone and I'm an ex-professional poker player. And at some point, a good 40% of those conversations will turn to the subject of gambling addictions.
Mm-hmm.
And, I say to them, where did you go on Friday night? I went down the pub. What, are you an alcoholic? Was your friend an alcoholic? He was drunk, wasn't he? Isn't that like, gambling really heavily for a night? These people aren't alcoholics, and alcoholism is not to be belittled, and neither is gambling addiction. They're both very, very serious conditions. But there's an enormous step from being a gambling addict or even a gambler. Let's put it like this. There's a big difference between being a gambler and gambling.
I guess the reason why it sticks, Caspar, is that if you're capable of playing poker and you've an interest in embracing the interesting sort of propositions, gambling propositions that poker throws at you,
Mm-hmm.
which we know can be beaten, but it's quite hard, then why would you want to take a proposition that's always a loser? For fun.
Exactly that. Exactly that. Anyone who's playing roulette or blackjack to make money, and I'm not saying there aren't some, these are the people that you are referring to, are Egypts. No doubt about it. But I think you'll find that's actually a very small proportion of the people on the other side of the rail.
Mm.
I would like to think so. And the reason I think that is because it is such good fun.
Is there a case of saying that if you cross the rail, then we use that as a metaphor?
Mm-hmm.
Let's take Fam, bad girl Fam.
Okay.
She arrived in Britain and went to the casino and started playing roulette. She didn't have a clue what was going on in the. This is a woman who's a very successful player.
Whose wife is she?
Steve Vladar.
Mm-hmm.
Is that how you pronounce his name? Who sounds like a sort of Star Trek.
Put an impression of your friend again.
Steve Vladar. Anyway, his wife Swen Pham is a very successful player, pot limit champion of some auspicious tournament. Anyway, she came from roulette. That's where she came from. But has she gone back? I'd like to think not.
What do you mean she came from roulette?
She went to the casino with a hubby and played roulette and had a look over at the card room. Didn't know what's going on. Found out what the game was called. It was poker. Learned how to play it. Got good at it. Started winning. Turned pro. Now is she still playing roulette? Can she stomach? Does it give her any fun to make a losing proposition? Where before, even if she knew technically it was a losing proposition, she wasn't under the illusion that she had a system or anything. Has she lost any appetite for a losing proposition? I would think probably yes.
I tell you what, I've given this little speech before on Poker Night Live with you in the room, but I'll tell you what, I'll say it again because I think it bears saying, and it's been about 5 months since I've said it. My experience of playing poker in Las Vegas taught me this. When you are engaging in all of these activities, you are either taking the best of it or you're taking the worst of it. And I'll tell you now the sort of mental process that I went to come to the conclusion that I will put forward in just a minute. And that was the principle of betting the odds on craps, which, as I'm sure you know, Tom, is the only bet in the whole casino which pays the exact value of the bet.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's 2 to 1. It's 2 to 1 to hit, and it pays out 2 to 1.
And you can only make it, in case the viewers aren't clear, having already made a losing craps proposition.
A losing bet on the pass line, yes. So the casino makes a profit overall. But there are some casinos, like the Frontier at the time when I was there. I think the Frontier's been knocked down now, has it?
I don't know.
I think so. But the Frontier, in order to get people through the door, offered 1,000 times odds on craps. In other words, if you bet $1 on the pass line, you could then bet $100 behind. Now, the fact is there is still a small house edge there in that situation. But just imagine, I remember thinking, imagine a scenario in which the casino genuinely offered you a bet, which was the exact value of the bet. And I kind of remember thinking, that's a bit weird, isn't it? You wouldn't do that. You just get this, it would just be like betting on a coin and even money. You just think, this is a waste of my time and his. You
think they're less likely to do that than try and fight against the odds?
Yeah.
You might be right.
This is exactly what I feel. And what that realisation made me think is that actually there is a reason why we we place losing bets. I think it's precisely because we know that we're placing losing bets that gives it its thrill. And my theory is this, is that when you place what you know to be a losing bet, and by the way, it's so obvious and public in casinos it's a losing bet, it's unbelievable. I mean, first of all, everybody knows subconsciously that it's a losing bet anyway, but there are actually neon signs rotating on the tops of fruit machines, as I'm sure you've seen, saying 97.7% payback. I mean, they're advertising the fact that it's a losing bet. The fact is that 97.7% payback is a higher payback than the slot machines down the road, do you know what I mean? So they advertise it, so that's great. But it's bizarre in life to advertise something as, we will take your money if you play this. If you watch women and men playing slot machines with their jerry cup full of quarters or dollars, putting the things into the slots, if they're winning and you pass by them in the aisles, they do this, right? Because they don't want you to touch them, because their luck will brush off onto you. And my feeling is that actually the feeling of being lucky is one of the closest feelings that there is in a secular world to being touched by God. It's a feeling of blessing. In fact, that's a word that's often used when you talk about luck. It's, I was blessed, I was fortunate, I was lucky. And therefore, I think it's precisely the feeling that people are beating the odds that makes it thrilling. Now, compare that to sitting in a poker game. Compare you sitting in a poker game with 10 idiots. Are you going to take their money? Yes, definitely. Probably even in the short term. Is it going to be thrilling? No. Is it going to be exciting? No. Is it going to prove anything about your poker play that you don't already know? No. Would it make you money? Yes, it'll pay for your rent that month. But is it going to give you any of those good emotions? No, not at all. That's why I think people need the thrill of the negative expectation bet, because when you play poker and you know that you're actually mathematically winning, and there aren't many situations like that, but when they happen, it's great. From a bankroll point of view, there's no emotional thrill. You're not gambling, you're just earning money. And certainly for me, I realised that I'd quit my job, moved to Las Vegas, I thought I was escaping the 9 to 5, and in actual fact, I just found a different one.
Typically.
That's life, isn't it? So that's why I think people do it. And I don't think, if they do it for profit, then we can agree, then they're idiots. But I think there's very, very good, completely justifiable psychological reasons why you would still engage in that for the thrill and the fun and the excitement and the feeling of being blessed. Walking home after an evening of blackjack in the Rio, $200 up and 54 White Russians down is one of the best feelings in life.
Are you a poker player who plays table games on the side? Do you have a dirty secret? Never mind, Caspar has admitted to one. I might later on in the programme if you're still around. But let us know if you play roulette, blackjack. Well, maybe not blackjack, that's a funny one, but roulette or big wheel or sickbo.
If you played big wheel, you're an idiot. I don't care what kind of
thrills you're looking for. Because it looks tacky as well as the proposition. It's like the big bird of table games, isn't it?
Yeah.
Takes up a lot of space and doesn't do much. Let us know if you are, because we promised to lend a sympathetic ear. Stealth69 has got a question for us.
Is he a bomber?
Hi, Nuts. I seem to get into the money in tournaments about 50% of the time. However, according to my calculations, you need to achieve 60% success, assuming you're third all the time, just to break even. Therefore, if a good player is one who achieves 40% success, then surely he loses money. Well, yes, if he always comes third, but you'd have to be pretty bloody minded to always get into the money and then come third. Unless it's a very strange strategy we're not aware of here.
I think Chaos would certainly thwart that strategy, wouldn't it? Yeah. Even if you tried to come third, I'm sure you couldn't.
Yeah, you'd have to always throw away your hand, and sometimes you'd win anyway, accidentally, because you're all in before the blinds. So there's your answer, Stealth. You don't always come third.
You can be a winning player on 40%. There's no doubt about that, for precisely that reason. So I wouldn't sweat it. Do you want to try and make it more than 40%, 50%, 60%? Yeah, definitely. But I would say if you're making the money 50% of the time in a sit-and-go tournament, then you're doing well.
And one more quick one from a chap called G. Larry. Dr. Tom Sambrick is an anagram of Broom Most Dark. Mark Bannon, informative sneak thief bungs.
Well, that's not true. Mark Bannon doesn't have as many letters as informative sneak thief bungs. That can't be an anagram, can it?
I'm glad you spotted that, Caspar. This is why I read them out and Caspar sort of checks them, but it must be Mark Bannon 7-8 offsuit. That's
okay.
it.
Mark Bannon 7-8 offsuit. Informative sneak thief bungs.
Informative sneak thief bungs.
Is that appropriate in any way? It's not like rotund, Rotund genius promiscuousness or something.
Rotund bossy supremeness.
That's right, yeah, that's brilliant.
Which was Doyle Brunson's super system. Thanks for that, G. Larry. We're going to take, before we go down to the poker, a quick reminder of how you get in touch with me and Caspar in the studio. You can text us here on 62211 with your anagrams or poker questions or secret losing proposition stories. We're doing an amnesty on them at the moment. poker@pokernightlive.co.uk is the address. And here we have a $20 sit and go. And look at this. Dominated ace is about to suck out. I can feel it in my bones. He's got 2 threes. He's got 8 clubs. How can he not suck out here? Oh, he hasn't sucked out.
You're uncanny.
Uncannily wrong.
So, how are you feeling in your ivory tower at the moment, looking down on the proles in the rest of the casino?
Well, if I'd made a fewer losing propositions in poker, one way or another, I'd probably feel more sort of disposed to judge them. But maybe I shouldn't. I would like to know. I mean, I see great poker players playing roulette.
You have done. Yeah. It's all about motivation, isn't it?
And players I'm very surprised to see playing roulette. Players who are not crazy geniuses, players who are grinders. I can think of one I couldn't believe what I was seeing, really.
It's all about motivation. Is that guy, those people, are they playing to make money? Are they playing because they want to win money on some level? Or are they playing... Or there's another two. There's another 2 motivations, I think. Are they playing for the sheer enjoyment of it? And actually, you see some of these guys, the last thing they're doing is enjoying it, are they? Yeah? Would you agree?
Well,
if they're sitting on a table by themselves, with a dealer in the corner, drinking amaretto and playing to the wee hours, that's not my idea of a great night out.
No, I'm thinking more of people who just have a flutter before the tournament starts.
Okay. Fine, then I think that's a sort of... Again, if it's within the context of their household budget, again, I don't think there's a problem there. They're just killing time. They're just, what would you do instead? You might go and have a coffee or have a drink or something. Again, for people for whom £30, £40 is not a lot of money, a little bit of poker before the game starts is fine. There is a third reason, which I think is slightly different to a desire to make money or a desire to have fun, and this is where gambling addiction is profoundly worrying, is that it's fulfilling a subconscious desire to destroy themselves. In other words, they don't feel that they're worthy of the money in their possession, and gambling is a great way of losing it.
But a good poker player, a solid poker player, how can they be privy to such emotions? Because if they want to, if that is a subconscious desire, the last place they're going to go is a card room, where there's a chance they're going to win money if they play well.
I think that's their living. I mean, I don't see any contradiction in the way that they can delineate the different feelings. I know it's not... I know it doesn't make rational, conscious sense, but that is what the subconscious is. I mean, that's what, psychological disorders manifest themselves from psychotic cannibals at one end of the scale to slight obsessive-compulsive disorder at the other end of the scale, and we're just talking about something within that scale. People do irrational things by virtue of their subconscious urges. And psychologists can argue till they're blue in the face about whether that's neurological cause, psychological cause, conscious cognitive cause, or whatever. It's just one and the same things. Personally, I have a belief that people have a certain self-image and sense of self-worth in their mind that their subconscious will bring about, will motivate through conscious actions to bring about. And I think that what the most worrying motivation to gamble is out of a sense of self-destruction. And that's precisely what I think you sometimes see on those tables, where people who are... That doesn't mean to say that they can't be good poker players, although it does mean that they probably have a propensity to go on tilt from time to time as poker players. I mean, I think this is what Stu Younger had. Stu Younger was a genius, and at his best could play probably the greatest poker that's ever been played on the planet. But he was, a deeply troubled man who engaged in a number of activities, not just sports betting and ridiculous proposition bets and outrageous negative expectation bets, but drugs and all that went with that, with the subconscious aim to effectively destroy himself. He didn't feel he was worthy of his talent. You all right?
Yes, it's not a bundle of laughs, is it?
Well, let's have a laugh about the game and let's bring it up.
Yeah, it's a sit and go. It's
tempo.
It's like a merry-go-round of fun.
It's crazy poker. Let's have some fun.
Aces.
Woo!
Let's see if they get cracked. By King Deuce off, which is the worst possible hand you could have against aces.
No, that's against kings.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, damn! I thought
Sorry.
it was a great anecdote, but I just got it wrong by 1 pip. What is the worst hand you can have against aces then? You sure it's not King Deuce also? I bet it is, you know. Yeah, I bet it is. For the same reasons. Don't rubbish my anecdotes.
No, it'll be ace 6.
Oh, see what you're saying. Do I see what you're saying? Oh, of course, because you've lost a card, haven't you?
Yeah,
you're right. No, it won't be ace 6, it'll be ace... It'll be ace king. No, ace 8, 9. Oh, yeah, you're right, it's ace 6. You're always right, Caspar. Because
by having a 6, having a 5 gapper, you've eliminated the straight possibilities. It'd have to be a 6 unsuited to eliminate the flush possibilities. And in fact, to be honest with you,
ace 9 would be just as bad.
Yeah, it would. Yeah. Although there are more 9s in a deck than 6s sometimes. Depends if 9s are wild or something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true, of course. That's why it's such a difficult game to play poker in that sort of contingency.
All sorts of things can change. 9-10 Jack Queen for Jack Alley. But of course, the ace 6 is in the lead. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, he's zolled through. Oh, is the ace queen suited on the button? Now I'm going to get 7-8 off. What was Mark Bannon's handle again? I've forgotten.
7-8 off.
No. It's Mark Bannon's 7-8 offsuit informative sneak thief bungs.
Could we rearrange that to form a sentence?
Yeah, Mark Bannon 7-8 offsuit. By a strange commutability. King Jack off. Ooh, lays it down. Now we learn a lot about 4 King Ace from that. I believe you can do that if you want, but he certainly tells us a lot about his style.
He's a very tight player, 4 King Ace. In fact, for me, he's the new Snap It. It's all the rage.
He's the new Snap It. And Snap It is... Well, if he's the new Snap It, how can Snap It not be the new Snap It?
Snap It's the new Torskus.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, mixing it up.
And what's Torskus?
I never see him anymore, actually.
So that's the way it works. Someone sort of poodles off and everyone inherits. Everyone moves along one.
Yeah, let me show you what I mean. Let's have a look at a few pre-flop folds and we'll see exactly how 4 King Ace is playing.
Ah.
There you are.
Well, you're right.
Yeah.
You're not wrong, Caspar.
94%. Elal, 61%. 7-8 on tilt is, of course, not on tilt at all. Very clever, very clever. I see what he's done. He's creating an image which is at odds with his style.
Oh, what a cad.
And 4 King Ace.
Isn't this just exactly the reciprocal of what we saw before?
It's not, interestingly.
Oh, is it
4
not?
King Ace only played 4% of hands. That is tiny, isn't it? I think there must be some account for the blinds that changes
okay.
the...
So it is different. 10-10.
Binaries, as you like to call them.
It's Michelle who likes to call them that. I just go along with her.
That's true. She actually says, as Tom likes to call them, but she just enjoys... She likes to say, as Tom likes to call them.
6-handed, blind still 40-80. I think I'm going to call this one for Johan Haren. In fact, I'll take Johan Haren against the field, which I know can't be right, but I like a gamble, as you know.
Are you?
Yeah.
Thinks.
No, you can have the field, Caspar.
I can have the field?
Yeah.
What? Is this the man who was saying that people who played the big wheel are Egypts?
Well, this is sports betting, it's different.
But I'm not giving you odds.
Well, we'll say an even bet. You take the field, I'll take Johan Haren.
Right.
I'm that confident in my man.
You can't possibly be. You
I've
can't.
done my background. I'm a
It's nothing
sports
to do with
gambler.
background. It's
Caspar.
nothing to do with that.
I've done my background.
You're not, and the fact that you're doing this
Firstly.
demonstrates that.
Well, you just see, mate.
Listen, if you're going to turn around when Johan Horan wins and say something like "told you," I'm going to walk out of the studio. It's going to be the antithesis of everything we spent a whole year trying to teach people.
Well, you said that it's like poker entropy working with me. I'm just proving your point.
Oh no, I didn't mean that in a bad way, though, mate. I think I'm complicit in that. Little.
Okay, well, I'm taking him anyway.
All right, cool.
Do you want to take the bet?
No, that's cool.
Okay.
Eli's won this, look. So.
Yeah, I know. Because he sucked out with his better kicker. Well, we'll see. Perhaps it was a rash bet, but you know, I fancy my man.
There's aggression. You like that? You like that from your man? That aggression?
Yeah, yeah.
Early
yeah.
possession caller, wasn't there?
Well,
Or was it, he was just taking the blinds.
These rocks. It's the best way to play.
They're calling everyone else rocks.
Mm-hmm.
4% hands. Presumably forking. He won a big blind with ace queen when it was folded to him, but presumably apart from that, he's just sat doing nothing.
Well, he's going to let Jack Alley in. At least with Queen King, he's less likely to get trapped if Jack Alley catches a 6. But he's missed. And mentally, he's got to work out whether the Jack is out there. He's decided he's not interested in taking on 2 players. But can Johan Hara incredibly represent that Jack having checked the flop? It's difficult, frankly. Very difficult. I would probably be inclined not to bet here. I'm not sure I'll be believed. However, if his opponents have missed also, then it doesn't matter whether he's believed or not, they'll have to fold. He has checked, and yeah, Jack Alley's worked it out very nicely. He's seen the way the betting has gone. So not much in the way of hands coming out.
No, King 8 suited. I mean, that was a sizable steal, 4 times the big blind. Do you think it's...
Ooh, danger here for Johan. He might fight back.
Do you think it's imperative, Tom, to steal blinds at this stage in the tournament?
No, it's never imperative to steal blinds. It's nearly always a good idea, but you never have to make money in poker doing a particular thing. There are other ways to make it. You could very probably win a poker game just by always calling, if in a particular kind of poker game, by not betting. But it's such a cast iron way to make money that you should do it most of the time. There you go. I got it wrong when I said that he was going to win against the field, but I did say that he might well get into trouble on this hand. So I'm a better poker player than a sports bettor. Which is my point, strangely. But I'm not going to say what my point was exactly.
No, I tell you what though, you've made it very well.
I'm not shifting from it either.
You've almost made your point experientially rather than literally and logically, which is a much classier way to debate, I find.
More resonant, I feel.
Yes, definitely. What you just said there, interestingly...
Can I just give an example of that?
Definitely.
You see poker literature telling you that you must steal enough blinds to keep your stack level.
Yeah, it's nonsense.
Sometimes you hear them say you must steal enough in the course of a blind level to be at the right size stack for the next level, so you should preemptively steal them.
Yeah.
My reply, what if you're in a game full of maniacs where you can't steal blinds?
Right.
What are you going to do? Say you read in this book, I've got to steal blinds, get raised, find out you're behind. Sometimes you can't. You've got to adjust.
Yeah.
Sorry, Caspar. I've got off my soapbox now.
No, please get on it at any time. I'm just wondering whether there's a bit of relevance within that, as 4 King 8 receives a lot of respect for his raise.
So you implied there might not be much relevance in
No.
what I was saying?
Relevance in that for the email that came in earlier on about the slow playing.
Oh, yeah.
I think that the phrase that you used was, it's never imperative, but it's often profitable. I wonder whether we can say the same thing about slow playing. It's not imperative to slow play to make money in poker. There are other ways to make money, but it can increase your profits if used correctly and at the right time. And I think I was saying that the right time was when you're playing a player who will correctly not call you when he's worse, but may bet out when he's worse. In fact, Sklansky talks about inducing the bluff, doesn't he? I think in both Theory of Poker and Hold'em for Advanced Players.
And that was one of my favourite bits of the book when I first read it.
Really?
Inducing the bluff and inducing the check, those two bits really made me think, wow, this is how I get my edge in poker.
Can you remember the salient points of that chapter?
That you want to induce a check in a situation where you can't call your opponent's bet, but you would like to see a free card. So you've got a reasonable chance of improving, but you can't call a bet to do it. And so you then employ some method of inducing a check, like, for example, dwelling up, or in a real card game, of course, you've got maximum opportunity to do whatever you think your opponent will think means that you can't bet this, but will call, and that's how you induce the check from him, preventing the
Holding
bluff.
your chips, getting ready to call it, that kind of
Well,
thing.
no, probably not something quite that gross,
Okay.
but a bit more subtle. And the same with inducing the bluff. I just had a great idea then, Caspar, but I've forgotten what it was. But I'd just like to log with you the fact that I did have a great idea.
Well, updates as events warrant, yeah?
Okay, yeah, sure. Oh yes, I remember what it was.
Oh.
It's come back. The thing about slow playing, and I was saying that, look, actually you can probably play a positive expectation game if you never ever slow play, but you'll probably make more if you do. There are two ways in which you make more. One is in the particular case of a strong hand, like for example when I said you had a set and there was a completely safe flop. That would be a time to slow play. You make money on that hand probably if you slow play it compared to if you lead out. But there's a kind of hydraulic effect of slow playing if you're not inclined too much, is that the more you deviate from a single strategy, the more uncertainty you produce in your opponents. So if you're someone who never slow plays, by slow playing a bit, you induce uncertainty. And that means that you can make more money on all your hands, the whole lot, all 169, because your opponent is less certain what you hold on each occasion. So according to the fundamental theorem of poker, which in this case applies, he will play worse because he can't make the correct play based on what you're holding. And this is the sort of
against
thing...
a bot.
Indeed, particularly against a bot. This is the sort of thing that won't show up in your poker tracker statistics, because that just tells you how much you won on the hand. But playing a hand affects how your opponent plays against you in all other hands you play.
Two other things to say about slow playing. Now we're on a roll. First one is that Sklansky does actually say that the only time that it's always correct, or definitely correct, not always, definitely correct to slow play, is when giving a free card cannot hurt you. In other words, when you're loaded.
Well, you see, that's not true either, because if he's going to call you if you bet it, you're right to bet it if he's got lots of chips.
Yeah, that's true. So I didn't say always. I said you can definitely be correct.
Oh, you can? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I mean, no, maybe not. Maybe.
Okay, we'll refer it to the second point, which is that. Oh, I forgot what it was now. Which is that. Yes, here's what I would urge. In the same way that playing 7-2 offsuit before the flop, is a hand that relies on implied odds. Well, let's say 7-8, right? Is a hand that relies on implied odds. In other words, you're going to win the hand less often than you lose with it. All right, you're going to lose with it more often than not. But when you hit with it, you'll hit big. Pair of six is the same. Okay. If you slow play a hand, if you've made a few losses with it, you mustn't conclude from that that therefore it must be a less effective play. I think when you slow play, you are by definition getting yourself into a situation where you're going to win the hand less often. Yes, but what you're saying is that hopefully your increased winnings will more than account for the number of times that you lose the hand.
Yes.
Or increased number of times that you lose the hand.
That's
yes,
the promise of the slow play.
Yeah. So I guess all I'm saying here is that sometimes we are inclined, not you and me, just people are inclined to emotionally err on a style of play where they will lose least often, and that is not necessarily a profit maximising style of play.
No, indeed, although of course it is a variance reducing, which might help you
That's right.
if that's a problem.
Yep.
And we are all human, and
No, that's true.
yeah.
I didn't mean that sarcastically. We are all human, but playing in a way which emotionally we can deal with is very important. If someone, I think it's a perfectly acceptable question. We've had this conversation before, but if you have a problem with variance and you just by nature don't handle the swings very well, definitely make it a priority in your play to improve that aspect of it. But in the short term, maybe make some plays which are less variancy, and make it your long-term aim to improve on that front.
That's the end.
I know Forking Ace has won it all.
Does that mean his tournament strategy was brilliant, or did he just get lucky?
Means he had, tight play in the beginning and then opening up later on. Works for him.
It's a common strategy for sit and goes.
You advocate it. Mark does.
Yes, we do. Let's do some emails.
Okay.
Bill, how far ahead in percentage, i.e. aces v queens at 80%, should you be in a sit and go to put all your chips in the middle before you reach the money for it to be a long-term winning move? Well, lots of ifs there, Bill. I wouldn't be hanging around for 80-20s, to be honest. I'd be more than happy to take a few 66-33s. Depends. Is there dead money in the pot? How much are you fighting for? What are the pot odds? Are you near the bubble? Have you got a huge edge over your opponents? Are they better than you? If they're better than you should be happy to put it in if you've got 45%. But, 80% is a lot. And if you're determined that you want that kind of overlay before putting all your chips in...
Well, you'd always have to wait for aces.
You're going to have to... You would, indeed, if you didn't know what your opponents had. Or see quite a few flops, you're going to be blinded away. So there's plenty of luck in poker. And if you get it in at the right end of a 60-40 proposition regularly, you're going to be raking it in. So I wouldn't be quite so picky. Let's have a look at another email. We've got one here from Coley. Confessions of a Bone Dogger.
Klingon, I think you'll find, is the majority.
The minority
ruling at the
view.
moment. I don't care. Make that clear again. I don't care.
Hi, says Coley. I mailed in a couple of days ago. Do you want to say what a bone dogger is, just to bring...
Yeah, bone dogger or Klingon is the name that has been suggested by you folks out there for a player who waits a long time for those premium starting hands, and then when he's got them, doesn't put them down. In other words, he's like a dog with a bone, or he clings onto them, if you prefer the more science-fictional phrase.
Well, I like bone dogger because
Nomenclature.
it's got more opportunities for faux pas. I mailed in a couple of days ago to ask advice about playing a 750,000 prize fund online tournament that I had won entry to via a satellite online.
You're right with the punctuation?
Yeah, fine.
Sure.
Nothing throws me, I'm a pro. The tournament was tonight, and Dr. Tom asked me to send a report on my progress. Thank you very much, Cody. This is great. There were 4,200 entrants, and it paid down to 423rd place. It's a bit like the World Series, isn't it? I lasted nearly 3 hours and was going along quite well, averaging around 500 to 600th place, until I find myself too attached to ace-queen suited.
Bone dogging.
So that's a hand that rears its ugly head in a tournament at some point. How will you negotiate it? I got no help on the flop, so I bluffed, got called, then check on the turn, followed by being raised on the river. I called and was beaten by 9-9. Very bad play. Sounds like bone dogging, doesn't it?
He
And
got
a
no help on the
pretty
flop.
manky bone too.
How was he raised on the river? Did he bluff out?
Yeah, it looks like he bluffed on the river, having bluffed on the flop. This made me short-stacked until I finally had to go all in with 6-6, which was beaten by ace-ace, finishing in 1,300th place. Well, you got into the top X%, fine. The
question is, how do you keep concentration for long? How do you keep concentration?
That's ironic.
For such long periods of time? I know I just played bad in that hand, and it cost me. I was playing tight, about 25% of hands. Not that tight. Doing well, and then stupid madness came over me. That's what it was, a fog of stupid madness. Help! He says, I've only been playing for about a month, so is this just a novice problem that will go away with time, or is it a skill that must be learnt? It's mostly a novice problem, Coley, because you know you did it wrong, and in the future you'll know you're going to do it wrong if you do it, so you don't do it. Although even experienced players do things that they really wish they hadn't when they do them. So I wouldn't. If you've been playing a month, I mean, come on, that's ace queen suited. When I've been playing for a month, I just played my hand. I didn't have a clue what was going on. But, it took me a while to learn that you had to worry about where your opponent was.
Still do sometimes. Flush draws.
That is cheap, Caspar. That is really cheap.
True though.
It was a nut flush draw, and she was blonde. Good Lord. What do you think, Caspar?
It's sad, isn't it? That was actually genuinely about 2.5 months ago now. It still crops up.
Well, it needn't.
No, it's true. To me, it's being sad.
It's not even Michelle who's talking about it. Did you go away from the game a winner?
Hard to say. It was such a long time ago. You forget, don't you?
I can tell you, Caspar, you didn't.
I tell you what, I didn't. Do you know why?
Because I doubt you sent me bad cards.
Because having the table French polish cost us 400 quid.
Oh dear.
Was it bad play? Yeah, the ace queen was very bad play, but the bluff on the river was very bad play, and you know that. So the question is, how do you stop doing that? Well, one of the things you can do is to keep a crib sheet by you. Viewers will know that I kept a crib sheet. And by the way, does the person who won that have it? Are you in possession of it? I need to know. That's the first thing. The second thing is this whole issue of psychological control, which I talk about many, many times, and sometimes we go into a lot of detail. But at the end of the day, it's a word called discipline. And there are things that you can do to make yourself more disciplined in life and in poker. Should we go into some a little bit later on tonight?
Cold showers?
They're too long to list right now. But,
okay.
But it's an interesting question. Well, the interesting question is, okay, let me tell you this. I do training for companies. How long have we got, by the way?
About 1.5 minutes.
1.5 minutes. I do training for companies. And
before the break, I mean, they might have left before then. But,
yeah.
You keep going.
And a lot of the training that we deliver is good stuff, but it's not rocket science. It's not like this is going to completely revolutionise the way that you see things. But people need it and people benefit from it because even though they know they should do it, it's worth having someone come in and give them a refresher on it, but also give them a little bit of a bottom kicking and say, you know you should do this. And the analogy that I always draw is I say, what does the World Series, what does the world champion of poker and guys who've made $5 million from poker have or do that I don't do? Do they know more about poker? Probably not, actually, not considering the amount of books I've read on the subject. Do they get better cards than me? No. They do what they know they should do. It's the single thing that makes a difference between great and good players. And that's what you need to tell yourself, Coley. Do you want to be good at poker? You watch Poker Night Live, you're getting all this great theory. The difference will be, do you do what you know you should do?
There you go. We are only human, so you just got to live up to your own standards. Little one here from Charlie saying, just a wee note to let you know that I've won for the first time in a game. Not bad for the few weeks I've been playing. It's all down to you on the show, and I watch and listen and learn from what you say. I'm over the moon with my win. $100 sit and go. Love the show. Keep up the great work. Thanks for that, Charlie. Quick reminder of how you can get in touch with us. 62211, 62211 to text the studio, or email us at poker@pokernightlive.co.uk. We're here till 2 o'clock in the morning. We're going to take a short break now. Don't go away. Come back soon for lots more poker. Welcome back to Poker Night Live. Thanks for sticking around for the final hour. Let's have a quick look at some emails before we get back to our games. We've got one here from Sam, aka Lumas. Where's Torskus? Was indeed a question that we posed earlier. Sam has come back with the answer. He says you haven't seen Torskus much, as he's raking the profit on $25, $50, 10-handed games.
Good for Torskus.
There it is. And also one from Carlo543. Carlo says, hey, don't get despondent, guys. Take a break. Do something crazy in the name of love. I'm not making this up. This is what he says. Take up watercolour painting. Climb Mount Kilimanjaro. Then return to poker with delight in the comfort of an engaging old friend. Soul poker, that's what it is.
Is he saying that poker will be an engaging old friend, or do I have to have an engaging old friend there?
No, poker is your friend, Caspar.
Return to poker with delight in the comfort of an engaging old friend. I don't know, maybe he says you've got to go to poker with, like, Nick sitting there or something.
No, I think if poker is his friend. Unless he's a friend of Nick's, you don't know.
When were we despondent? Were you despondent about the whole betting thing, playing blackjack, that kind of thing?
I can't remember why
I
was
feel quite
despondent.
upbeat at the moment.
Well, thanks anyway, Carlo.
Yeah, no.
I might do that.
Have you ever climbed Mount Kilimanjaro?
No, I haven't.
I'd like to. I'd like to climb Mount Fuji and play on that golf course with it in the background.
Uh-huh.
Did you see what international sign language for Mount Fuji?
I'd like
What it
to
looks like.
climb the Eiffel Tower. I have, actually. That was just a cheap go.
I'd like to climb the corporate ladder. That's money. It looks like I'm dealing cars, doesn't it?
That or
Climb
something
the
else.
corporate ladder.
We better get ourselves down to some poker, otherwise people will start questioning the branding of this show. So we'll take ourselves down to a table right now. Guess what it is? It's a cash game. Here it is, 25 cent, 50 cent. And snap it, drifting back down to where it was before. Duff Miver's arrived. Your biggest fan, Caspar.
Well, we have an understanding and a mutual respect.
You know he's married? Yeah, and Harren, it's like a never-ending party, really, here. What a waster, Gary Glitter, grinding it out. So the maximum sit-down here is $50, and we know that Gary won Glitter. He's doing all right. Johan Harren likewise, at least for this load-up of ammunition. Firebird likewise. In fact, there's so many chips here on this table, in excess of what the maximum sit-down is, that some of these players must have been here for some time, I think, to have accumulated that chip stack. MGN has hit top pair. He's only got ace-king to really worry about there. A6 is unlikely, as is a pair of sixes. And he's ahead. $8.25 in the middle. Bet for value, bet for value. Should take it down. Bit too stiff for Gary Glitter to continue. And he takes it. $18, although he did put in quite a lot of it himself. Jack 10 in mid. Bit too good to fold. How's he going to play it? Just with a limp. And Gary won Glitter. Trouble is that raising the small blind here does pretty much announce his hand as almost certainly a big ace. The reason being that the pairs that are big enough to raise there are between them less likely than ace-king, ace-queen, ace-jack suited maybe. So it's very often the case that a raise in the blinds means big cards rather than some sort of pair. However, he doesn't want to play ace-king three-way, especially with a blind in the pot that he doesn't know what he has, namely Duff Miver, so he takes the pot there and then. And now what? Johan Harren limping in. It's a cash game. He's sitting there with 160 big blinds. There are various players out there with a similar amount. He reckons that the massive implied odds that might give him warrant a play. Don't forget, though, that one of those hands is Jack, Queen, King. That's one of the implied odds you're looking for. That's straight, Jack, Queen, King. Ace 10 is the sort of hand that might be out there. Some hands with implied odds, can turn into reverse implied odds. Suited cards, small suited cards, great implied odds when they catch the flop and make a flush, but thereafter reverse implied odds start to loom. If you can't get away from it when another card of that suit comes, then the implied odds belong to your opponent with the big bare ace in his hand.
Can I take us back in time?
Okay. When to? Because I'd quite like to go back to when they were sort of doing the early astronomy in the 17th century.
Do you know, I'd quite like to go back to a first date I had with a girl at the age of 11 called Tonya Cade. We worked for Police Academy 2 in the back of the cinema, and I didn't kiss her. I always regretted that.
Do you suppose she has?
Probably not with the same intensity.
Well, it's a bit selfish of you, Caspar, because what would I do if we went back in time to that time? I mean,
no, you'd have a horrible time.
I really want to see.
I was there with Robin Waterson was there with her friend. I can't remember her name. I probably shouldn't say it, but you'd be like a fifth wheel. be horrible for you. But Police Academy 2 is quite funny. Before they started getting really bad, they're going to make a new Police Academy. Did you know that? Yeah.
Well, perhaps you should invite Tonya to go and see it with you.
That's not a bad idea. I'm quite up for doing things like that.
Tonya, if you're watching, Caspar's lonely. You know, he's in a rut.
Tonya, not Tanya.
Tonya, yeah, Tonya, like the ice skater.
Beautiful dark skin.
As long as your beautiful dark skin hasn't become freckled and you haven't got ginger hair or anything, do get in touch with the studio, because Caspar would like to take you to the art house film Police Academy 18, and this time he will kiss you full on the mouth.
So, let's not go back to there, actually, or the 17th century. Let's go back to the email from Smooth Cut.
Oh, well, that's not a radical departure. Okay, fine.
No. Hi guys, just want to know your thoughts on my actions should have been the hand I played last night. Now, he had pocket kings, and he raised 4 times the big blind. 4 times the big blind. He got one caller, we don't know whether it's the blind or behind him. The flops are all rags and unconnected. He bet the pot and got called. The turn card is another rag with 2 suited cards on board. He bet the pot and got called again. The river card is an ace. He's thinking, what is he calling with? 2 pairs, is it? 3 of a kind, is it? So he checks, and his opponent bets half the pot, giving him 3-1. And Smooth Cut folds, and his opponent shows he has nothing. In the chat box after, he said that he knew I must have had cards, so he represented the ace. See, that's no certainty there at all, because there are players who would do all of that with ace-king, actually. And aces. In hindsight, says Smooth Cut, I feel maybe I should have continued betting into the pot and you'd have had to fold. But then he may have been calling my sucker bets into his hidden trips. Well, I disagree with that. I think that he should have checked the river or made a bet which he knew was a blocker bet. But I don't think betting the river at that point is the right thing to do.
No, the best thing is to bet and induce a bluff and call it. Difficult to do, though.
Induce a bluff and call it?
On the river, I mean. Because there, if he bets, his opponent does fold. Well, unless he raises, well, that'd be a miracle.
So he says, but he may have been calling my sucker bets into his hidden trips. Please put this hand out of my head. Normally I don't dwell and accept my play was right or wrong. Okay, the point of the matter is that he is getting 3-1 return on that last bet.
On the call.
On the call, yeah? So assuming he does check on the river, the question is he correct to call there or not? That means, we'll just take an example, if the true probability of him winning that is 2-1 or less, if he's going to win 1 in 3 times, if he has the better hand 1 in 3 times, then he's correct to call. In other words, he can be worse 2 in 3 times and still be correct to call. If, for example, the probability of him winning was 4-1, the return is only 3-1, so if the probability of him winning was 4-1, then 1 in 5 times he'd have a bigger hand, and 4 in 5 times he'd have the worse hand. So the question is, Tom, in your reading of that situation, is he going to have the better hand 1 in 3 times?
If I'm there,
yeah.
I'll know, or I'll make a decision. Not being there, all I can say is what the pot odds are to his call.
Okay.
And from
but you wouldn't like to go any further than that?
Not with the information I've got, no. I mean, it's a difficult one. It's certainly not, it's not just a sort of classic situation where you just got to take a view and the view should be this. It's a genuinely good bet. I think it's a great bet from the guy. Once he's arrived at the river, it's a great bet because it doesn't have to work that often to pay off. You know, he's putting in half the pot.
That's what I'm saying. So why? Let's just break that down. What you're just saying there. Why is it a great bet?
Because it's got a reasonable chance of inducing the fold from Smooth Cut, and it doesn't have to work very often to pay off because he's only putting in half the pot. So only got to work 1 time in 3. So it's a nice bet. So Smooth Cut has got a genuinely difficult decision here. Now his question is, could I have called? And my answer is, I don't know unless I'm there.
What would you get by being there that we don't know from?
Broadly speaking, should we say feel,
which
might be the time delays and him putting his calls in. It might be the hands I've seen previously. It might be other information that's not in that email, like, for example, who else was in the table, and so what starting values his have had. All this stuff is kind of grist to the mill, and that contributes to feel. All I can say is what the pot odds are. But it's certainly a decision that Smooth Cut has got there. I think I said I would probably call in the absence of any other information. I can't remember if I said that.
and let's be completely clear. If he calls, he can lose 2 out of 3 times, and it will still be a profitable call.
Well, if he leaves 3 out of 4, and he'll be breaking even.
Yes.
So 2 out of 3, and he'll be making money. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
So,
And folks, it's really, really important to get a handle on that. Is if you're getting 3 to 1 on this bet on the river, there's no more betting to come. So the only decision to make is, are you going to call that or not? I mean, you could raise if you want to, but the question is, are you going to call that or not? And you can lose 2 out of 3 times, and it's still a correct call. And that's something that I don't think a lot of people fully understand, because they go, oh, you call and you get it wrong, and well, that's an incorrect call. Now, I think personally, I think that you can call there, given the information that I have, that you can call there, and it's a correct call personally, because you say the other cards on board are rags. Would he be calling with what are the hands that can beat you? There's no flush potential, so they are 2 pairs, 3 of a kind, or either ace nothing that makes it on the river, or one of those other pairs with an ace. Now, if he's called a 4 times the big blind raise, I think it's very unlikely, it's not impossible, it's very unlikely that he's made 2 little pairs. The most possible situation is that he's got 3 of a kind, but I think that he would raise you on the turn with 3 of a kind. That's my feeling about it. And I also think that almost with 2 pairs as well, is that if he had that kind of hand, he would have raised you on the turn. And I personally think, and this was my point at the time, is I think he's made a very bad play calling with the ace. He's only made a good play in the sense of joined up poker, setting the guy up for a play on the river. And it would have been very, very difficult to do that if the ace hadn't fallen. So therefore, putting all those things together, I think 2 pairs unlikely to raise you on the turn, 3 of a kind is unlikely to raise you on the turn, and it is unlikely, because it's incorrect, to keep calling you down with nothing but an ace, hoping that an ace falls. None of those things are impossible, but are you going to win that more than 1 times in 3? For me, you are. And therefore, I think reluctantly it's a call. When the ace comes on the flop, that's a completely different situation. But with that pair of kings with the ace on the river, and getting 3 to 1, I would be calling. If the bet on the end had been a pot size or bigger than pot size bet, giving us less than 2 to 1 pot odds, different again. But giving me 3 to 1 return, meaning that I only have to win 1 times in 3 for it to be a profitable situation, I think I'll call.
Mm-hmm.
Does that all make sense?
It does. Smoothcut. I wonder what Smoothcut's reasoning was. I mean, he's decided that. I think he's taken the view and said, I'm reasonably certain I'm behind you, and I'm not prepared to pay off even at those pot odds. Yeah,
that's fine. And we're both agreeing this is an interesting, great email, and it's a difficult situation. So there's no way that any of this is. I'm not saying any of this is obvious or that Smoothcut's made a mistake. Your point overrides mine, which is if I was there, there would have may well have been things about the actual situation that would have dissuaded me.
Yeah.
Interestingly, if your opponent's a very loose, wild player in that situation, it makes it a much more difficult call, because we can't say with any certainty that he doesn't have 2 little raggedy cards and has 2 pair. The fact that he's got nothing doesn't matter from our point of view when we don't know that. We still have to give more credence to the fact that he had 2 little raggedy cards which have hit 2 pair, or a small pair which has made 3 of a kind.
Offset against the fact that if he's loose and wild, then when you're getting pot odds of 3 to 1 against such a player, you're tending towards saying, well, let's put our money in.
Interestingly, though, isn't it? That's I've talked about this before, Tom. Is that there needs to be more delineation and distinction between the different versions of loose and wild, because there's loose in terms of his propensity to call pre-flop with anything, and there's loose and wild in terms of his propensity to bet out on the river with nothing. Now, I'm not saying that one player can't be both of those, but they are actually 2 different manifestations of it. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, it's important. I mean, you're halfway there just by having them down as loose, but you'll do better by segregating them into the subpopulations like that.
Good email, though. Great email. I just wanted to come back to it, Tom, and just talk about that point that you can lose 2 out of 3 times and still have a winning bet there.
Yeah, that's one of the great ironies of poker, is that although calling in such a situation, let's say, calling in such a situation may be profitable in the long run. On any given occasion, it was wrong. And it's impossible to say, well, although I called when I should have folded, or I folded when I should have called, I will be a winner in the long run. I mean, no one's going to buy that at the poker table. You just have to decide it for yourself. Queen 5 suited, a highly speculative raise there, and in an 8-handed game, I don't feel the need to make those plays. And if I'm going to play with suspect cards, I'll choose slightly more promising ones. However, it doesn't get much better than having the other guy's flush draw dominated when you're playing suited cards. And a good old-fashioned limp there from ace 4. Limp, 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 snap it, no. Up and a down for Gary Glitter. Top pair. Duff. His top pair. Not the board's top pair. Middle pair on the board. Top pair for MGN. And not much for Firebird. Well, that changes everyone's hands to made hands into draws and draws into made hands. Apart from MGN, who's still sitting there with his solid and unimaginative ace. Duff with a pair and an up and downer. When you draw into straights like that, it's always worth checking just to see whether the card that makes you your straight is a danger card. And there, the king was relatively safe. Relatively safe. Jack Queen a possibility, but by no means a certainty. And Duff takes it down. Nicely done. Just the 9. Jack King, Queen Jack, Ace Jack, they'll come limping in. It'll be a limpathon, that's what I'm predicting. Let's see what snap it does with Ace Jack off here. Yeah, I'll raise myself. I think there's an excellent chance that there'll be, certainly Firebird is looking like he's weak. MGN almost certainly too. I'm pretty sure I'm ahead. I don't want to be called at all, but I think I'll take the pot down sufficiently often with the raise that given I at least make some money and don't have to surrender the pot on the flop or thereafter on the times I get called, I'm happy to raise. So snap it's raised, and now he's got a flop, unfortunately, that he's got to make some decisions on. A straightforward continuation bet is by no means the obvious way to play it. You might well be trapped if you do that. He's checked, and unfortunately MGN has caught his 3 out of there. That's rather unfortunate. And there's quite a lot in the pot. Snap it might be tempted to call here just to see if MGN is mucking around. To call and then hope to show down a better hand on the river with MGN not betting. So there's 2 ifs there. One is that MGN doesn't bet at him again on the river if Snap it calls, and the other is that Snap it shows the better hand on the river, either because he was ahead and didn't get outdrawn, or because his opponent had no draw. But Snap it decides that even 2 is too much to pay. And we can see there that he was certainly correct to fold on that occasion. More limping going on. Gary won glitter, there you go, making the punishing play there. I like the play a lot. If he gets called, he's got maximum misrepresentation. It's a shame it's been raised though. And a big raise from MGN there. Look, Gary won glitter could well just be punishing those limpers without much, but Queen King is a bit of a dog. I mean, we saw just a minute ago that Snap it made the same sort of raise with Ace Jack. Well, that's beating Queen King. Whew! And that's a lovely flop for Gary, provided that MGN doesn't take that Jack. Interesting matchup. 8-25 in the pot, both players with lots of chips. And look, Gary Glitter is going to put MGN on probably overcards.
He'd be right.
And not Jack Queen either. He's not going to put him on a straight draw, not with a raise from MGN. I think he's going to put MGN on Ace King, Ace Queen.
If he does though, Tom, would he not be correct to check that and try and give MGN a...
The trouble there is, Cass, is that any of the overcards that comes is a scare card for Gary.
Right.
So he won't quite know where he is. That's the way I think.
Okay.
But of course, if the opponent's got overcards, then he's in great shape. Well played, Gary. We love the way you played the 9-10 there. With gay abandon. Kieran says, hello there. I always watch the show when I'm playing online. Just heard what you said about the Egypts who play roulette. I play roulette, and I'm an Egypt. I've won a very few and lost many. Only way to describe roulette. I'm looking at joining a casino. I hear they can be intimidating. Will I get bullied the first few times by the regulars, like the first time you went to your local, by the older clientele, who take an intense dislike to the youth of today? Or will you get mugs who feel, he's young, let's take his chips? This is a mentality that I do so love taking advantage of. The only live games I've taken part in up until now have been raking the profits from friends. He's a man with a lot of confidence, isn't he, Caspar?
Good.
I feel I'm good enough to compete at a better level, but would I be fooling myself leaving the PC to hit the casinos? Most people I talk to about poker feel that unless you're making a living from poker, you're not good enough. I beg to differ and have a current win ratio of 40% first places and 70% top three. I've been playing 7 months. Sorry to go on about it, but is this good enough to move on to the major leagues of the casino world, playing for cool, hard cash? Caspar, is he ready?
It's a good win ratio, isn't it?
Certainly is.
What limit are you playing? Big difference between a $5 sit and go with that win ratio and a $50 sit and go with that win ratio. You're confident, which is good, and I say that genuinely seriously because you do need confidence when we're talking about your psychological preparation. If you don't believe that you can win in a casino, then you absolutely mustn't go, because belief is a key prerequisite. I do take the attitude with these things that you've got to go and do it, because I tell you what, I think if you are a rational person, you will have some sort of feeling deep down as to whether you're being intimidated by these people, bet off hands by these people. A lot of the emails that we get, Tom, I don't know about you, I think people know deep down they've made mistakes, don't they? I mean, we had an earlier email from a guy who got wedded to Ace Queen and bluffed on the river and said it was awful play.
Totally.
And we've got the email from Smoothcut who is genuinely, upset about it, and so have we been, because we can't quite put it. Actually, people know when they're making good plays or bad plays, and I think you'll come away from the casino knowing the same, and then you'll say to yourself, I'm either going to set myself the challenge of beating these guys, or there's no point doing that because I can win lots of money online, or I'm winning already, this is a fantastic place to be. So I don't think there's any problem at all with going across that rail and playing. If they're rude to you, you know what, one of the things that I suggest actually is taking a Walkman. Put the Walkman on, maybe play it very quietly if you want to try and listen to things at the table, or don't play it at all. But Walkman and shades, just go into your own little world. You don't have to talk to the people. And if you make friends and they're nice to you, then that's fantastic.
And most people in card rooms are perfectly pleasant, provided that you're pleasant to them, as long as you don't go in with lots of attitude. Yeah, but that's America, Caspar. They're all gentle.
No, in America they're brilliant. I think in Britain they're rude.
Really?
Yes. Yes. Yes, very much.
I have quite good experiences in card rooms. Was it Adrian or Kieran? Kieran. But if you're worried about the old cottages, then certainly if you live in London or any large metropolitan place, there's a good chance there'll be a new card room opening up, because they're opening up all over the places. So to get on the web and have a look, and what you'll find in there is a much younger crowd, and presumably also a newer crowd, people who haven't been playing poker very long.
Have you played in the Vic?
I have played in the Vic. I like the Vic.
Do you think that people are friendly in the Vic?
Well, I wouldn't say they were, shake your hand friendly, but they're perfectly pleasant.
That's a minimum requirement, I think, for friendliness.
Well, I don't expect to shake everyone's hand when I sit down at a card room.
No, I don't mean that, but I mean, I think they're spit in your eye friendly.
Well, don't go to the Vic then, or at least don't go with Caspar, because I hate him. They're quite nice to me. Dr. Tom and Cass on Poker Night Live. I'll say that again. Dr. Tom and Cass on Poker Night Live equals, this is an anagram, Doctor's Revamped Thinking Salon.
Oh, I like that.
Not bad.
I like that.
Not bad at all. Thank you very much, Tom. Terrific. Right, well, we've got the multi-table tourney still going on, so we're going to get down there right now. 26 still left. 26 across 4 tables. I don't think, unless there is a real outbreak of looseness, we're going to see the end of this, because we've only got about 20 minutes. But we are into the money, they'll all be pleased to know. Let's see what you get paid. $5 is what all these players are guaranteed. Now that is in fact an infinite return on their stake, Caspar, because they paid nothing to enter. So they've got an infinite return on their stake. Now that is high stakes poker.
I like your thinking.
Chip leader is in seat 3, high straight flush, or big straight flush, beg his pardon. And, well, at the moment, he's looking to knock out Coxey. But not Kaiko. I think Kaiko is the one who knocks out Coxey.
Thank God he's gone.
Why?
He's being lewd, wasn't he?
I don't get it. It's not rude, was it? Coxey?
Bit lewd.
What, because it's got C in it?
But he was lowering the tone of our lovely show.
You probably thought he was raising it.
That too. Inside straight draw for Louis. Second pair for big straight flush. And he won't be bet off it. Two big stacks here going at it hammer and tong. It's like the big King Kong T-Rex attack fight thing, isn't it? Two big giants.
Alien versus Predator.
Alien versus Predator, yes.
Godzilla versus...
Directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, a resident of Newcastle upon Tyne once upon a time.
Really? You're a talented bunch, you Geordies, aren't
He
you?
went to the Royal Grammar School. And then he went on to produce fantastic films like Event Horizon.
Oh, I saw that movie.
And Shopping and Mortal Kombat. And Soldier, which didn't get a cinema release with Kurt Russell. What have all those films got in common?
They're about fighting.
Yes. They're all nonsense.
Fold, fold, fold. Fold, tan. No need for you to buck the trend. None at all. Call if you want, but do something quick, please. And Lolgi dominated. Oh, so dominated. Puts in the minimum raise. Might well take it down. No. Kaiko comes in.
So, Tom.
Yeah, you're going to ask me a penetrating question, aren't you, Caspar?
Yep.
Okay, do it.
If these players are getting an infinite overlay onto their invisible buy-in,
Yeah.
does that have a ramification for their strategy, or should they still be playing
No.
just a profit revenue maximising strategy?
Yeah.
Sure?
Certainly.
Shouldn't have any implication at all.
No, none whatsoever.
It's interesting.
But I'm happy to be shown the error of my ways, but I can't imagine what it would be. I mean, one way of looking at it, Caspar, is this. Say it costs you actually $10,000 to enter, and let's say there are 100 players, which means that there is... what is 10,000 times $100? It's a million, yeah. So there's $1 million in prize money, and they'll get a certain number of chips. And let's say in a parallel universe, there is 100 players who didn't pay anything and have got $1 million to play for. In both cases, the players sitting down with 1,500 chips have no money. They've surrendered their money. It's gone. It's gone behind the cash desk. So they're in the same situation. They're playing for $1 million. They've got 1,500 in chips. So it's a bit like the idea that we get when we learn poker, that once money is in the pot, doesn't matter that it came from us, it's gone. We're trying to win it, doesn't matter that it came from us. And I think it's the same situation here with the tournament. Once you buy in, your money is gone. Can you win back some of this prize money regardless of where it came from?
Still, an infinite return is pretty good, isn't it?
Spiffing.
And curiously, Caspar, I think I'm right in saying, I don't think any mathematician will correct this. If you
Cam may have hit the wrong button there.
oh, what happened?
Just folded bullets.
Oh dear, how depressing.
That is depressing.
If you get an infinite return when you win, if you get a prize, which you do in this free roll, then provided there's any chance whatsoever that you will get to the money, then you have infinite expectation when you sit down.
That can't be right.
I think it is right. Let's say you get into the money, which is $1, 100th of the time. Your expectation per tournament is.
Well, let's say all places were paid then.
No, there's got to be a regular tournament. So
Well, it's just create a theoretical.
what, a tournament where everyone gets
scenario.
paid
Yeah.
in a free roll? Well then, all right, then clearly you've got infinite return.
So you've got infinite expectation.
Yeah.
Doesn't that suggest you're going to have infinite amount of money?
Well, no, but you're infinitely better off than you were, and you should be grateful for it.
It's come out a treat.
Yeah. However, these guys are just honing their poker skills, I'm sure. Ace 4, betting into Ace Jack, 8,000 in the middle. Minimum raise, isolating his opponent. Minimum raise back, and they might both get the collie wobbles now. Yeah, Lol's checked. However, high straight flush, big straight flush has got the flush draw as well. Interesting bet. I wonder what he's trying to achieve there. He's not going to get called by someone who's not ahead, I don't think. Whereas he could have drawn for free to his flush. Well, we'll never know. Munchkin with the fours.
So you're sort of applying a river principle there to the turn, aren't you, Tom, in a bit?
Yeah, I am, yeah.
He's not going to get a call from someone with the worst hand.
He didn't really need to defend his hand.
I wonder if he could argue that he wants someone to pay to the flush, because if they pay to the flush, then he'll win both ways.
Oh, he's drawing to say king high flush.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. But then, supposing he gives him a free card and the flush comes, he's losing implied odds by betting on the turn.
Oh, I'm not sure he is, actually, because if he bet out there and someone made their king high flush...
No, we have to call him first.
Yes.
I'm saying
He's
by
losing
pushing
implied odds because the stacks are so small relative to the blinds.
No, he loses implied odds if he bets his ace flush draw against a king flush draw. He loses implied odds because the guy folds and doesn't pay a big time when the flush comes on the river.
No, but I think the reason what I'm arguing is that he doesn't, because when you bet out like that, excuse me, on the turn, you actually make it less likely in your opponent's eyes that you've got the ace high flush.
Draw.
Yeah.
I see, yeah, cunning.
Yeah.
But of course that's no use if he can't call you.
No.
So you're
But I think he would call you precisely for that reason, because you're representing more of a made hand than a draw hand.
Yeah, that's a fairly sophisticated play if that's why he's doing it.
It is. And so what's the problem with making a sophisticated play? Is that if your opponent doesn't understand it, if your opponent's not thinking on that level, then you've passed up equity.
Yeah.
Interesting. Here's a big hand, look at this. 10 in big straight flush hands, little b, proving the old adage, there are no good hands, only good situations. 8-10, great situation. Probably our chip leader now.
Yeah, well done. It's a bit funny watching a multi-table tourney that we know we're not going to be able to see the end of. It's like having to leave the theatre before the final curtain.
I've been doing that a lot recently with cinema.
Walking out of films?
Yeah, I walked out of In Her Shoes, Match Point, and Broken Flowers. In fact, Nick and I walked out of 3 out of 4 films consecutively, or 3 out of 4 films, having only walked out of 2 films previously in our entire lives.
Well, it's because you keep going to see arty movies. You want to go and see a good war movie.
In Her Shoes was an arty movie. Match Point wasn't supposed to be an arty movie. It wasn't supposed to be drivel.
Films are never supposed to be drivel, they just sometimes turn out to be like that.
tell you some secrets from the BBC about match point, but I'm not allowed to. I'm sworn to secrecy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How intriguing. So 3 tables are left. And what happened to old Big Straight Flush's chip lead, eh? I think it's gone to Little B.
Yeah, it did. Little B had a 8-10, full house, 10 full of 8s, and Big Straight Flush had the 10, the pair of 10s on board, and the king kicker.
Ooh.
And that'll cost you, won't it?
Yes, it will. It will cost you. And X-Heart's got to do something very soon indeed. Now would be a good time if it's folded to him, but not if it's not, which it won't be, because Big Straight Flush has come in, and they'll be inclined to let it go. Rolgui looking for a middle pin to make the wheel.
Excuse me.
And Big Straight Flush now got to be worried about those draws. He's bet in half the pot. Takes it down. Not the cards X-Heart was looking for. And Big Straight Flush wants to play, doesn't he? He's limped in with A7. I think that's an unwise move. Under pretty much all circumstances. Catches his 7, but behind to the jack. Oh, Kako checks. Oh, he's looking to check raise and take the pot. Must be Caspar. He's... Oh, no, he doesn't quite know where he is.
No.
But it looks like they're all drawing.
He was in the... Yeah, he's...
Yeah, he's got a tremendous amount of dead money there. If he gets even one fold, that's brilliant. Look at the equity he's getting here. And that is, I mean, worked out. How sweet was that? He pushed them all out, left all that dead money in. Incredible. I mean, it did work out, even, you know, that he played, I could see that that was his game plan. It worked out spectacularly well for him.
Do you think?
Yeah,
with
I'm sure
a 4 kicker?
Yeah, he was looking to check raise one player in, get himself all in and double up, I'm certain. His reasoning, Caspar, and I think it's quite sound reasoning, is this, is that if I bet, although a lot of the time they'll fold, a significant amount of the time they'll call and they'll be ahead. But if I check raise, I've got a very good chance of being ahead. Because they fold an indifferent sort of hand if he bets, but they might well bet if he checks. They might bet an indifferent hand.
And if one of them had moved all in, he would have folded?
No, I think he'd have called.
Would have called?
Check, call, check, raise, same thing. He knows his check raise has got no folding equity. Because he's only got 15,000, he's looking for the double through.
Right.
And he got the quadruple or more.
Okay, yeah. So he just wanted to get as much money in the pot as possible from it. Well, I'll tell you what, he's one step ahead of me, but maybe that's just the time of day.
Well, he hasn't been doing top-class commentary for the last 3.5 hours.
Something else we have in common.
Yeah. Well, maybe he has, who knows?
Absolutely, who knows?
Isn't Kako a girl's name?
Could be a Japanese girl. We all know how I feel about them.
The good players?
Brilliant, they're brilliant. Poker. Don't know, not a clue.
Oh. See, the thing with Japanese girls is I'm always worried if I take one home, I'll find out when we get home that she's a boy. And that I might not mind.
There's so many reasons why you're going to be taken off the air now. I can't even begin to count them all.
You're the one who's said crap earlier.
Well, now you've repeated it. It was in the context of, you know,
Well,
it's all about context, isn't it? Just ask
solidarity.
anyone at Ofcom. I know, I train them.
We're fine. Do you?
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
So we're safe?
I don't train them in, you know,
Can't you
punishment decisions.
give them some subtle NLP cues not to close us down?
It's quite a big organisation, actually, Tom. It's not like I can just wander in there and... Hi, Jim. That sort of thing.
I think we must be down to 2 tables here, because they've just filled up a load of seats here. Come on, guys, play really loose so that we can catch the end of this. Ignore all the advice we've given you about the GAT concept and all that stuff. We want to see a final.
4 to an inside straight flush draw.
That's the sort of draw I like.
This is on all sorts of levels. Anyway, that's really not a worry when deciding whether to take a Japanese girl home.
Oh, okay,
no,
fine.
It's really not. I'll tell you what, let's just settle on this. If you don't want to, just give me a ring.
Okay.
Okay?
Okie dokie.
Always happy to help a mate.
Okay, mate. When are those blinds going to double? That's the semi-rhetorical question I'm asking Caspar. And what is Logwee going to do with his 9s? Which is not really rhetorical. In it goes. Keep things simple.
15 times the big blind.
Pushing it a bit, isn't it?
Yeah. I tend to think, I think 10 to 12 is an upper limit on that.
It's an absolute cast iron ceiling of madness.
And to be honest with you, I think I'm thinking more 10 than anything.
Yeah, 10's fine for me.
Because I think
only with a pocket pair.
I think
else.
the reason why I put 10 as the ceiling is because if I raise it to 3 times the big blind with 10, I can see myself being pot committed.
Yep.
After that.
Yep.
So I may as well push. However, with 12 or more, I'm not.
Yep.
And therefore, it becomes correct, I think, to leave myself some decisions in my stack.
Well, that was good, Caspar, because you showed that these numbers that you get out of books, how-to guides to hold them, they might be good numbers, but there's a reason for the numbers. And so when Cass says 10 big blinds, you can make the move, but you can't with 12, it's for the reason that he just says, that he's thought in terms of what bet can you make that's a useful bet that he can still get away from. And 3 from 10, he can't, 3 from 12, he can, and that's why you get a figure like that. There's a reason for it.
There really is. Pair of 8s is looking pretty at the moment. Not much else is. And 8's got a problem here because, I mean, there's only 1 overcard, but you've got 3 opponents. You've got to make that bet. But when you get those calls, what do you do now? What do you do now if you're 8s? We know that big straight flush has got a 6, but what do you do before you hit an 8 on the turn? And thank your lucky stars.
We've got an email here from... let's just see how this plays out. I thought we were going to see a fold there.
I think a bigger bet from Hearts. I think definitely a bigger bet there.
He was down to about 7,000 a minute ago.
Yeah. I think, well, I mean, bet on the river, actually probably not a bigger bet, but certainly a bet on the turn. We weren't profit maximising there, I don't think, which is essential, isn't it, in a tournament when you hit trips?
Mm-hmm.
Got to make your money somehow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's Dead Spiders. Caspar saying, hi guys, can I ask a quick question on something Caspar said earlier? How then do we go about improving our attitudes to accepting variance or any other equivalent mental block in the long term? The ability to go into practically or into potentially or actually painful situations for your own long-term benefit, a bit like going to the dentist, say, with some kind of inner strength or resilience seems like a very important skill, not only in poker, but also in life, and dentistry, and probably overlaps the concept of self-discipline, making it a very important ability to cultivate. Help, please. Well, Dead Spiders, I mean, if we knew how to be disciplined and to keep all our resolutions, then we'd all be happier people. But just as New Year's resolutions are broken, so are resolutions not to play cards you shouldn't be playing in poker. I don't have any answers. Caspar, you look at me like I'm a weakling, a moral shrimp.
The prawn.
You've got about a minute to whip
Oh, really?
through.
Is that all?
Yeah.
Oh,
hardly
okay.
any time
Well,
whatsoever.
there's two ways to do it, Hugh. The asker of always ask very, very good questions. First of all, check out my post on the forums, which is Poker and NLP. That gives you a few interesting pointers. There's a couple of other posts on the forums that I've put there about using metaphors to improve the way that we think. Broadly speaking, the way that you do this does break down into two areas. Number one, the conscious mind, and number two, the subconscious mind. I've talked a lot about the subconscious mind in different shows, and I will again, I promise you, this week, although I always receive a lot of stick from people on the forums for doing so. But here's the conscious one, Hugh. It's everything we've talked about tonight. If you know consciously that you can make bets in poker where you'll lose 2 times out of 3 and still make money hand over fist, then you can make those bets and become psychologically immune to the swings. As long as you've got the bankroll's a different thing. You need to have the bankroll, you need to be able to afford that money in terms of your domestic budget, and you need to be able to afford it in terms of your poker bankroll. And as long as those two things are covered, and you consciously know that you're making the right play, in other words, you're focusing on the fundamentals, then there's no problem. For example, let's say you're a salesperson, and you look at your figures for the last 6 months and you see a 12% or 20% conversion rate. Well, it doesn't matter to you that you make 100 calls a day and 80 of them fall on deaf ears. It doesn't matter because you know that you make the necessary sales from the 20, not necessarily the course of a day, but a week or a month or a year, to more than pay for the no's. And in fact, the no's, the rejections, are a necessary part of profit maximising as a salesperson. That's how you do it, Hugh, is you can consciously demonstrate to yourself the underlying mechanics. For example, you know when you call a bet on the flop, when you're getting 10 to 1 and a 2 to 1 chance of making your flush, that you're doing the right thing. So that's an example where it doesn't matter to you so much whether you make your flush by the river or not, or it certainly shouldn't. So that's one of the elements of discipline. The other element is your subconscious programming. And as I say, we'll talk about that later on because we're at the end of this show tonight and there's no time to go into it in detail. Is that okay as a start off though, Tom?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think how it will apply to my New Year's resolutions.
Well, I'll talk about that this week because actually that comes down to your subconscious self-image and self-fulfilling prophecies, which are also the other equally important part of this conundrum.
Chinese puzzle. Well, 3 times the king 9. He's been outdrawn, and big straight flush will be happy to play this for all his chips. 37 in the middle. Draws abound, and he takes it down. Well, just a quick plug for tomorrow's tournament. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow from 10 p.m. for the Dream Poker multi-table tourney, where players will not only be playing for cash, but for holidays and luxury goods. I wonder how that'll affect their play. And of course, there'll be the usual cash games and sit and goes too. So for more information about the TV tables, do visit pokernightlive.com and tune in at 10 p.m. sharp. And same time next week, we have again the Crazy Poker guaranteed $1,000 free roll, offering you, as we've established, certain infinite expectation. I think they should put that in the middle of the bays. So come in at 10 when we'll be covering that, and of course all the other tourneys, sit and goes and cash games. (9-6) in the small blind. The drama is overwhelming. He's called, he's trapping, limping, caught bottom pair, and he's ahead. And takes it down. Well, painless way to play 9-6 in the small blind. Absolutely painless. I think we've got time for one more hand before we wrap tonight. Let's have a look at this. Going to be Andy in the small blind with the decisions to make. Ace 7,
Offsuit, raise, fold, raise, a substantial raise, pretty much stating I don't want to be called, but at the same time he can be relatively sure that he's not going to be called. Well, I've got time for one very quick email. It's from Robin. It's not really an email, it's a rub down. Robin is giving the rub down to Johan Haren, saying, "Hi guys, what a great show tonight. Watching the solid player Johan Haren lose some money. All in, ace-8, ace-8 suited in a tourney. I don't think that's solid." That's my man Robin's giving the rub down to.
You like Johan Haren?
Well, I put money on him.
Oh, that's right, you put money in. Yeah.
I think it's very rude of you, Robin, to text the show to rub down Johan Haren when we don't know who you are and what handle you play under.
It's rubbing down you, mate.
But we are an open church, as it were, a democratic organ for your voice. So we don't mind getting a few don't look at me like that, a few rub downs on this show. It's all a bit too good-natured, really.
I just think you've been very lewd tonight. I think you spoiled what was otherwise a good show with lewdness.
No, not at all. If you have a sick mind that can't understand...
I'm going to watch the playback tomorrow and see. Confirm.
Okay, fine.
I said
don't
crap,
mind.
that was it. Once. Twice now. Twice.
Well, as I was saying, it's been an absolute pleasure, as always, to bring you Poker Night Live. I hope we've stirred up a hornet's nest of poker theory, or at least ruffled the feathers of the poker dodo, or possibly just rippled a few waves across the ocean of expectation, such as has been described.
Probably pull out of this metaphor now.
Good. Okay, well, tune in tomorrow night, same time, for more poker. We'll see you very soon indeed.